keep on. They called me Mandingo, so they can work me hard. But yesterday, my people, they called me king. Master, our king. They say you don't need Enderman, so we gave you God. They gave me God. I laugh, so I don't cry. Ha 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 ha. Don't you know you're royalty? They don't know. I be Manta. I be Manta. I be Manta. Call me Mandingo. Call me Mandingo. Call me Mandingo. Call me Mandingo. And I'll be Manta. I'll be Manta. I'll be Manta. I'll be Manta. Manta the king. Manta your king.
Not your boy, not your gal, not your buck, not your wench, not your slave, not your coon, not your shine, not your spade, not your jigaboo, not your jungle bunny, not your mammy, not your pickaninny, not your tar baby, not your colored, not your citizen.
You can't have my soul. They can't have my soul. Can't have my soul. Can't have my soul. They will bleed just like we. Don't you know you're royalty? 'Cause they don't want you to see. Don't you know you're royalty? They don't live in harmony. Call me Mandingo. Call me Mandingo. Call me Mandingo. Hey, call me Mandingo. Call me Mandingo. Hey, hey, call me Mandingo. Call me Mandingo. Call me Mandingo. Call me Mandingo. I'll be Manta. I'll be Manta. Get free. 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 Call me Mandingo. You can call me Mandingo. You can call me Mandingo. Get free. But I'll be Manta. King, 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 king.
6'1", 260 pounds. Do you think I was built for anything other than revolution, evolution? I'm ready. Keep on.
Perhaps I could have got away on beat for you catching me. You remember that? You remember that all day? You killed me. You remember that? You killed me. Niggas like you just prove what the Peckerwood say. We're just beasts. Willing to do anything. Kill each other. No mind. No feeling. Leastwise, I ain't gonna die like you gonna die. Like a slave. I ain't giving no lifetime of misery and what to this Peckerwood. I'd rather die than be a slave. You Peckerwood. That's right. You Peckerwood was oppressed in your own land. And you brought us here. But now we're here. And you just better know. This is just as much our land as it is yours. And after you hang me, kiss my ass. I'd rather die than be a slave.
Peace.
Greetings, everyone. Shalom, shalom, Shabbat shalom. All of you tuning in, just pulling up the glorious chat, or I should say, really just a video from YouTube. Uh, but I am, of course, Chief Yuya, and you are listening to our live study session that we do. Let me mute that. That we do every Friday or every Yom Shishi or every 6th day. And it's a build session where we offer the opportunity to not only ask relevant questions to your own journey and your growth, and hopefully not just your growth, but the growth and the journey of someone else. You know, willfully, sometimes the questions that you may come with and the concerns and ideas that you have are not just for your own personal gain, but actually are to help someone else, you know, in a real way and not just in a pretend way, right? So we do come together every 7 days as a community, giving, offering, growing. Thank you for the ones, you know, I'm looking for the chat for the ones. So thank you for that, for all of you, and blessings to you all as well, who's slowly coming in. And thanks for letting me know that you can hear me. I appreciate that. But yeah, you know, so we get together and we build and we grow. And I know it works because people do reach out to me and they tell me. You know, sometimes they don't tell me right away, but you know, periodically I get messages, or sometimes I run into people, which is a common one too, and say, you know, I want to thank you. You helped me through this, or helped me through that, or you know, it's interesting how connected people can be at times through their journey without you even being aware of it. You know, I've had a lot of young men say, man, you're like a father figure to me. You know, I never grew up with a father, you know, or you're like an uncle to me, you're like a big brother to me, you know, or even when we were doing the segments with everybody present, or when people do come on, I have heard like, yeah, like I know everybody. I know this one and I know that one. I haven't seen this one in a while. And this one, you know, so people stay tuned in a certain kind of way. And I suppose they get a comfort from that as well, which is cool too. You know, it's all good. So yeah, we have been consistent, and we're going to continue to be consistent, you know, in this journey and in this work. So you know, you're always open. There's pinned at the top. I'm looking at chat. I think it's in there. Pinned at the top, you'll see the link if you want to join the conversation, and if you want to share what is relevant, what is respectful, you know, and what is valued and needed, not just by you, you know, and I say that not just by you because sometimes people can be really selfish, and you know, I have seen that a lot of times people come into a build session and like they don't even really read the room, or like you maybe the build is moving in a certain direction, but they just want to know this one thing. Well, I just came here to ask this, you know, and it's like that sense of entitlement sometimes can be a serious indicator of who and what you are, you know. So think of someone else. Sometimes you'd be surprised. Giving and removing yourself out of the way and removing your will out of the way is where all the thank you, Abaru, is where all the good stuff in life really actually comes from, you know, more so than well, let me get some of that. Let me get some of that. Let me get some of that. Let me get some of that, you know, because you may think you have a master plan, and folks are just pawns, you know, on your chessboard, you know. So it's just something to kind of consider and to think about, you know, when you're coming into a session and you're sharing and whatnot. But yeah, you know, one of the things that came up, and I just, you know, I always share a little bit of sometimes what I'm building on before other folks step into the room. But it's been a lot of talks around fear this strong, and I noticed like, yeah, pretty much all strong, man. I just finished doing it like maybe 30 minutes ago. I've been counseling people around dealing with their fears, around addressing their fears, and you know, not having them sort of take them over or keep them in places where they're interacting with people they really don't want to interact with. Or sometimes you see instances where they're no longer interacting with people that maybe they feel they still want to, but that person has been removed for proper spiritual reasons, you know, out of their life, and it's just been a lot of interesting conversations around the fear that some people have exhibited in like moving forward in life and going somewhere where they may find themselves isolated or they may have to shake off excess people. And the thing about fear comes from the same place as love. They're the same thing. But the thing about love is that um, love compels you to embrace. When you're moving with a love energy, you expand and open up, and you say, okay, and you welcome new experiences, new ideas, new thoughts, unknown roads into your life. When you're operating out of love, and when you're operating out of fear, you immediately constrict. So fear becomes the blocker. Fear becomes the spirit and the energy. It's a non-material energy, obviously, but it's a non-material energy that causes you now to bind and pull back. And what's interesting on a biological level, there have been studies done where scientists have looked at DNA cells and have noticed that when a person is in a feared state, that they stiffen, and when they're in a comfortable state or affectionate or a love state, they soften. So it kind of lets you know that even in terms of like down to the genetic level, when you are operating and moving out of fear and insecurity and ego and arrogance, you don't learn. You don't receive anything. You block everything that comes to you. But when you're operating out of love, which is that connectedness and that seeing that all things are mine and that the creator is mind. So I'm seeing where I'm connected and already have the potential and the possibility to embrace all that's around me. Then all of a sudden you open up. It's very interesting, and you learn and you grow. And you can't fake that, because you can say that you're that thing, but if there's a lack of growth and there's a lack of true learning, then it's very clear that you are operating out of fear. So like I said, this has been an interesting strong for me, because I have really been dealing with that motivating force of love, fear, because fear motivates you. Love and fear will both motivate you. They motivate you to do different things, like I said. But fear will cause us to sort of glorify our imperfections. Even if on an internal level, we begin to become these projections and these ideas of all things that we consider to be imperfect about ourselves. Whereas love will embrace, and this is what it is, and sometimes through the imperfections, we'll go down a road we never thought we would have went down, because of the thing in us that may not be fully open. But when you're unable to do that, then you can never be fully open in your ability to love others or to connect with others. When you speak to someone and you know that they're a fearful person, or they're constantly speaking about what they're afraid of, or they have all this nervousness and this anxiety that's always existing beneath the surface. I have found that Oshun women are like that. They're very fearful people, very fearful. The waters look calm, but underneath those waters are raging muck and mire of brackish waters, and like I said, a lot of times people come to the earth with certain energies, not because they necessarily represent those, but because they need those energies in their life to learn them and to balance out with those particular energies, So sometimes you have people who they exhibit a lot of Oshun sort of energy, but it's so that they can learn love. It's not because they're actually loving. And I've shared this before. I've pretty much never met a loving Oshun. In all my years, one, and actually, it was a man, but I have never met a loving female Oshun ever. And many of them will speak about how loving they are, and I'm Oshun, so but it's a front. And a lot of times it's a front for loose sexual morals, to say, well, I'm a daughter of Oshun, so I believe in connection and giving pleasure and, sharing space with you're a slore. You're just a slore, and you're using Oshun to get your thing off, So a lot of times people can be astonished that their senses haven't really been developed in a way where they are now embracing and truly being loving and walking in a path of love. I see Jason says in the chat, to talk about stiffening and fear reminds me of when you're in a fight and you are in a fear to get hit, right? And you are stiff and can't adjust to what's coming, right? Because you happen to and thank you, Jason, for adding that in. Yeah, man, when you get into that space of fighting, man, there's a constant arousal that happens, and not a good arousal. And usually there's physical signs. Like usually when someone is in that state that you're describing, their eyebrows may raise up, and you find that their mouth opens and their eyes will open a little bit wider. Usually a person who's in a fear state, they kind of might do something like that, and what happens in that moment, there's sort of like a breathlessness, and you get a contraction of what they call the plastismia, plastismia myoids. These are muscles, and these muscles then contract, and usually you'll feel them like on this, like here and here, around here, like here will get stiff, and then that will extend down to your collarbones and the upper cheeks. And if you look close enough, you can see a person who's in a fear state. You'll see there's a stiffening here, and there's and here, right? Those particular those muscles, right? So and then there's muscles that pull the corners of the mouth. So when a person is in a fear state, those corners will it'll pull the cheeks backwards, and the corners of the mouth will pull backwards slightly. And sometimes it's very subtle. I used to do personal security, and I used to have to secure talent and different VIPs, and these are the things you learn, and sometimes even if you don't have a name for it, you learn to watch out for them and to look for them. Sometimes there's situations and there might be 4 or 5 people who are maybe acting a way that they shouldn't. And for me, I would always scan to see which one was fearful and which one wasn't. The one that wasn't would be usually the one I would pull to the side and try to get them to talk to their friends. If they were, and half the time that would be the calm one, because that's the one that probably has something on them. That's probably the shooter. But you talk to them and say, hey, you tell your friends to kind of so and so. But if you know how to look at the at the the face, and sometimes things that diverge along the face, you can kind of see. So yeah, like Jason was saying, there is a stiffening, and it causes you not to be able to be fluid with what's coming next. When I used to fight, I used to do this thing where people thought I was, well, not people, one person said it, but screw him. He thought I used to always show off when I used to fight, because I used to do this. Like when I was sparring, I would do this with my fingers all the time. And he was like, yeah, you was always showing off. He does that thing with his fingers when he's sparring. But what that was is, it's not that I was like trying to look cool by doing it or trying to confuse my partner. I found that when I held my hands like this, when I was sparring, through nervousness and sometimes through like sporadic breathing, my fists would get tighter and tighter. So I might start off loose, and then it would just get tighter and tighter and tighter, and that was really from like anxiety, like what's getting ready to happen, fear, just the nervous energy, the adrenaline. And once you're holding your hands tight, they move slower, because now your muscles are stiff and contracted. So you're going to punch slower, you're going to block slower, all like that like Jason just described. So I found that instead of holding my fist like this when I was fighting, if I held my hands like this, and I would do this just to keep everything loose, just keep it loose until it was ready to strike. Then I would tighten up, and I found that worked better for me. But it wasn't because I was showing off. It was because I was scared. So they thought, oh, he's always showing off. He does that thing with his hands. It's not. I wasn't showing off. It was to beat down just that nervous energy. I was always a nervous fighter, even though I didn't look like it. I could control the signs, but yeah, absolutely, man. What Aki Jason is talking about is right and exact, man. But like I said, there are muscles that contract and show different things, and sometimes we think that fearlessness is the act of sort of removing fear. I can hear my producers in the background. By the way, producers, I can hear you in the background. Sometimes we think that sort of like going into a space where there's a lack of fear, it is, we're going into a space where, okay, yeah, okay, my mistake, all. Somehow I got kicked off, but I think I should. Yeah, it looked like Zach. Zach may have taken me out of the running. I'm not sure if I can be seen, nor am I can be heard. Yeah, there we go. Zach was like, move over.
We
Move
in
over.
there.
Yeah, move over. You know. Well, yeah. Like I was saying, man, fear is not necessarily, or moving to fearlessness is not the reduction or the removal of fear, but it's the embracing of fear. So you move through fear by the concept of love. And love causes this embracing, and what you're embracing is compassion. You're embracing humility, and you're even okay. Thank you for the ones, y'all. I see you in the chat. I'm looking, and you're also you're embracing empathy, and once you do that, it starts to remove the resistance when you do that, and that's how you push through. So there's fear all around you. Like fear is like it has a certain viscosity. It's like this thick liquid that's hard to get through, and the only way you could, so it's still all around you, but the only way you can push through it is through the embracing of humility. You can't just be like, remove the fear. It doesn't work that way. You have to acknowledge, accept fear is there, and then, all right, cool, embrace it. And once you embrace it, it totally saturates you. It's like dumping. It's like jumping in and submerging yourself into it. Now, how do I swim through this? I swim through this by using humility, by using compassion, by using empathy. And, your compassion is when you begin to open up your heart beyond self-interest. So a great example, like Aki Jason was talking about the fighting, there was many times I would be fighting and I'd be like, man, I don't want to do this. I'm not feeling this. And, or like I'm getting ready to go train and I'm like, I don't feel like getting punched in the face today. Like I'm just not in the mood to be like, you might go to the gym to train. You already got a headache. I'm already starting with a headache, and I know this is only going to get worse. But then you move beyond your self-interest, and it would be times I would say, but what do my people need? My people need a warrior, and you can't time fight. Sometimes something's going to happen. You got to protect your people, and you have a headache that day. So you know what? That's what it is. I'm gonna just have to do it with a headache and be even more messed up when I leave, whatever. And that's a form of moving through fear when you remove self-interest. But yeah, peace, brothers.
Peace.
Peace.
Bless and love.
Bless and
Bless and
love.
love.
Bless and love. Bless and love, Chief. Bless and love, Aki Zach. Bless and
Bless and love,
love,
Aki.
Peace.
Yeah, man. Yeah. What y'all got for us? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. Oh, sorry, Akizaki, you're getting ready.
Please,
yeah, but
please, go ahead.
nah, it's amazing because as you
Somebody
started
help
to
me,
speak
man.
about Fair Chief, and then Aki Jason came in and said it. I was thinking about the fighting because in most cases, when you start to train, I know you can relate to this much more than me, Chief. The first thing your instructor starts to tell you, is don't be fearful of the punch, don't be fearful of the strike. you have to position yourself in a posture, and that posture thought was running through my head is actually pretty much for the last 24 hours. Like, you know, when you're deciding that you want to do something, like if you want to get these techniques down, or you just want to learn the formula, one of the first things you start to do is look at how your instructor is telling you to emulate his steps, his stance. Okay, the first thing you do is you get your balance. Don't ever lose your balance. Learn how to stand properly. Learn how to bend your legs properly. And then, of course, when it comes to you actually being able to apply the blocks, you have your standard fighting stance. But then, again, from a fair standpoint, there's a point when you say, hey, I'm not going to wait on him to execute 2 and 3 techniques on me. I'm going to give him what looks to be an opening, or in this case, you've prepared yourself to the point that you're going to bait whatever it is to come to you. And that allows you to actually maneuver into it a little different, because now you're beyond the fear. And it doesn't mean that you won't get hit sometimes, but because you've actually learned the postures, learned the formulas, and you've diligently continued preparing yourself, you know how to actually take some of the forces off the blows, allow it to come directly into your vicinity to actually say, hey, I'm just going to give it a little shoulder this time. I'm going to set this one up because I know he got some kicks. So I'm going to let him tire himself out. I'm going to actually keep him honest, because now in this case, I'll just use the analogy of love. The love that I have is, I won't probably break the limb, but I would subdue him and control him. Let's have a conversation. Why do you want to come at me this way? You're learning these different stanzas, and everything I've been doing pretty much for the last maybe few months, I've been attaching to learning how to fight, because a lot of it, more than 85% of it, is actually the mind. You can get your body adjusted all you want, but somebody could outthink you who may not be as skilled as you, because perhaps maybe you didn't realize that some of your foundation was that shaky. So I was just thinking about that when you said fair, and I'm going to put myself back on mute so the other brothers and yourself could speak to it. But definitely, preparing yourself for what is to come helps you to move past fear and acknowledging the fact that it will come at some point. But your preparation allows you to actually allow it to come into your space so you can absorb rather than just being hit, to allow you to actually move forward into the succession of actually saying, hey, completing this round, or even being successful in a fight, which ultimately is ultimately the goal.
Yeah. No, man, those are very good points, man. It is about the moving forward. If you look at any formula to defeat yourself out of fear, it's going to have something to do with moving forward. Because if you ever meet a person who experiences a lot of boredom, or who's always restless, that is a form of fear. Sometimes we have certain apprehensions that are within us, and what always sits beneath apprehension is sadness. Every time, it's sadness. So if we don't acknowledge and embrace the sadness, then we'll start having other expressions. Those expressions are usually based around boredom, or they are based around restlessness. And the thing is, it's like when you're exploring those energies, you create more fear. It's very interesting. Boredom and restlessness lead to evasion. You just start to evade the issues, avoid the issues, and then that creates more fear within yourself, as opposed to when you, with balance, you start to look at the circumspection and sort of the whole round part of your whole situation. This is what's going on. This is what it is. And once you start to move like that, fear will dissipate. I when I first came. Well, first. Well, yeah, hell, man, it's happened twice. I had crazy instructors coming in both times. When I first started training, I was a little boy. I was about maybe 6, 7 years old. And I had I don't even know if he was a real martial arts instructor. Like, somebody my mother knew, but I think he was like war torn. Like, he had his noodles weren't cooked all the way, and it was a group of us, man. This was our class, I guess. I don't know. But I do remember we used to have to run. And the distance we would run, I can say, anybody knows New York City, 145th Street up to 181st Street. Now, 1 mile is considered, 21 New York City blocks is considered 1 mile, right? So he had us running from 145th Street to 181st Street. 181st Street, there's the George Washington Bridge, and we would go under the bridge where you're not supposed, where there's like fences, do not enter, whatever. Go under the fence, cut through the fence, you know, we go underneath the bridge, and then he would have us form a circle, and then we would fight each other. And the thing is, whoever was the last person, when we would do this long behind, I'm like 7, 8 years old, would always have to do knuckle push-ups. Well, it was me and my older brother. Of course, I was the youngest person in the class. I'm a baby. So we were late. We were the last ones every class, and my brother would have to wait for me. So we'd be on the gravel, on the dirt, doing knuckle push-ups. And then after the knuckle push-ups, we would form what was called the bull ring, and then we would just fight each other. Now I'm 7, 8 years old, and I'd have to fight other young men with like 13 years old. You know, and he'd be like, fight, 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 you know. And I don't actually ever remember learning any karate, you know. I don't remember learning not one thing, nothing. But we ran, and then after all this was done, we'd have to run back. And but it pushes you through that fear. So now I know what it's like to get hit by a quote unquote big kid. I've been kicked by a big kid. I've been thrown on the ground. Okay, I know what this is, but my big brother's there. So he's not gonna let them kill me. I'm not gonna die. My big brother's here. But I am going to bleed. I'm going to cry. You know, every class I pretty much cried, you know. And when I trained as an adult, older, I had a similar instructor. You know, and then when I would train my students, I trained them the same way because I actually saw it was effective. So the very first class you come into my class, we're going to spar. You're going to fight. Not because I want to beat you up, but because I know you're scared. I know you're scared, you know, and you don't want to be, you're scared probably of getting beat up. You're scared of being embarrassed, you know. So you have to get beyond that fear. And that's being situationally aware. So even as a little boy, I would know I'm losing. We used to, class was on Saturdays. Every Saturday I'm getting beat up. I already know. I'm a baby. Some of them kids was like 16 years old, you know, and they would just pick me up, throw me, you know, stuff like that. Like just do being like wrestling moves on me, you know. I'm getting beat up. But I'm here with my big brother. I was excited just to be with my big brother on a Saturday, you know. So when you get that in your mind, you become situationally aware and you can embrace the honesty of what your situation truly is. Then you can move beyond fear. So with my students, they come in, we're going to spar. And in less than a month, you're going to fight in a tournament. Oh, I'm not ready to fight. Yeah, whoever it is, you're fighting them. You know, and then I'll tell them this is going to be I'll take them to a nice big one in like a gym somewhere. It's going to be a lot of people there. It's going to be black belts there. It's going to be, everybody's going to be watching you, you know, so basically everybody's going to see you get beat up. You know, that's what's about to happen. You're probably going to lose your first tournament match and everybody's going to see it. Can you deal with that? And if you can deal with that, you can do anything in this world. Because that's now moving your own self-interest of shame or jealousy or self-importance, moving all of that out of the way and focusing on the mission. You know, now there is no fear, even though you may not realize it because your heart is pumping, you know, that, but there really is no fear now. You know, so yeah, man, moving forward is always going to be the answer.
that reminds me of like exposure therapy. You know, when people are like scared to go on like elevators or they're scared of spiders.
Right. You immerse, you just immerse them. Immersion.
Yeah. Somebody that they willingly accept the challenge of saying, okay, maybe I'll just look at an elevator today. And then, you know, maybe I'll step in front of one. And then they eventually walk inside of one. It's like, okay, now let's close the elevator doors. Like I'm willingly embracing that which I'm fearing so that I can become more courageous in that moment. Because that's one thing I've seen people say too, like psychologists, like it's not that the person becomes less fearful. but it's that they become more courageous, and that's a different thing. Like, so now when that happens, it's like, okay, I can step into that. Like, I can do it. Versus scared. Like, they're like, it's like something you said before. Like, if you got to do it shaking, then do it shaking.
Right. Do it scared. Just do it. Do it scared.
Do it scared.
You're only gonna do important things scared.
Yeah.
Only, like, if you ain't scared, what you doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not even doing nothing. You know, and that's the, you know, like, we lose sometimes our momentum for that now, like, because we like roller coasters and we like scary movies, and we don't know why we pull towards those things, but it actually dissipates that warrior energy, I believe, on purpose. You know, it dissipates. Oh yeah, I get my thrills. I got my thrill rides, but your thrills weren't for anything in particular. You know, but there's a big difference when your thrills are centered around your growth. Your fear is what, like I said, what you're scared about, what you're shaking about, is centered around growth.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, because it's like certain things you just gotta do. Like,
right.
It's like cold approaching a woman. Like at some point, like for me, I would say like choosing signals, like that's easy. Like, oh, she already looking at me. I know she's
looked at me twice. Right.
That's easy. Like, I'm sliding on that, right? But somebody I just see, and she may not. I don't know if she's. I don't know. But I gotta see about that though.
Right.
Like I gotta see. I gotta try. And sometimes that nervousness comes up. It's like, I don't know. I don't know what she's gonna say. But it's like, if I walk away, then I'm gonna be scared. I'm gonna be more scared the next time I do it.
You walk away, man, you're gonna be on IG or wherever that night, like trying to figure out, you know what I mean? I think her name tag said Michelle. Let me see, Michelle Walmart. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you know, and that's the thing about being a man. All of those are critical things. Like, men have to learn to face rejection. You know, there's a lot of cats, man, who have put themselves in very bad situations legally because they didn't know how to face a no or a closed door, you know, slammed in their face. You know, and that, like you said, that approach anxiety, a lot of times, man, it comes from having so much, but sometimes things come easy. You know, I've always taught brothers, when it comes to picking up women, when you get into that space where you want to start going out into the field, start with a fast. You need to start with a fast, because the first thing you got to start to rewire your brain and know is that there are things I can live without. And that will keep you from doing something stupid or crazy, you know, like not knowing when to stop. You know, like you're getting on the wrong bus and everything. Like I can't, you know, I can't, you know, you just don't know when to stop spitting your game. You got to know when to say, okay, I don't get that one. That's all right. You know, so you take some time, and different things you should fast from. For a lot of brothers, it is masturbation. You know, take some nights off. You know, give Pamela a couple days off, and you know, and see if you can live without her for a little while. You know, and it could be other things, whether it's, you know, porn, or whether it's different foods, or whatever you feel you need. It could even be water. You know, take a minute, fast from water, and now when you start to go out there and you start interacting with different women or whatever, you'll be more sane, you know, in that process.
Man, so y'all are making me think of when I first started playing. You know, I wasn't in the boxing scene, but however, it was in foosball, and it made me think of going from flag football to tackle football. And you go from flag to tackle. Now all of a sudden you looking around, you like, man, that's big. I gotta hit this dude. And it's a level of fear that starts to run through your head. Like, if I actually step out here, I'm gonna get hurt. And And then when it's the first day of pads, like everybody's walking around and you looking good when you're just in helmets and everybody's going through the motion because you're just getting used to the helmet and you running through plays and drills and all of that. And then the first day you got full pads, you run that Oklahoma drill. And then that's when you start counting 1, 2, 3, 4. And you see who you got to go against, and you count where you're at in line, and you be like, "Oh, nah, go ahead, man, because I don't want to go against him." Or you go ahead. I don't want to go against him. And there's a time though where now it's like either you're gonna keep trying to duck and dodge because you're afraid that you're gonna get hurt. You're afraid that you're gonna get hit. You're afraid of all of the above, or you're gonna have to stand and you're gonna have to face that. Now the thing is, I saw on both sides of the spectrum where one avoids that and never was playing, but then they would take their helmet and they would hit it against a colored chair to try to get marks on their helmet to show that they were actually playing in the game, to say that I was playing with everybody else and look what I was doing. And almost in a sense that it would be like a grandiose delusion where they start saying that now, yeah, I am doing this thing. I am something that I haven't earned, something that I have not done. However, when I get placed with everybody else who ultimately did step up and face that fear, or who did go through that challenge, or who did have to go through that blocking, I think even there's that show that Chief did with Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places with the buckwheat. What's the dude
Looking
on
for
Lil
love in all the wrong places. Looking for love. That's what you talk about.
What's my man's
It was
name?
buckwheat.
Oh, okay. I
Okay.
don't know why I was like, and it was like love is not something that you find. I mean, it's something that you allow. It's not something that you find. It's something that you allow, and it's removing those blockages. So then now those blockages, for some, because they have been avoiding for so long, the blockage becomes their own grandiose thing in their own head of I'm this thing or I'm that thing, and you don't have any humility to see that you're not that thing when you come against somebody who actually took that punch or somebody who actually stepped in that ring. And then when you avoid it for so long, then I was looking up, as you guys can tell, some different delusions.
Delusion number 1. Come on, smart guy.
You got this thing called referential delusions. This is all in the DSM-5 if anybody wants to look and see where I'm. They got this referential delusion. So now, because you got this grandiose idea of who you are, then you start thinking that other people are talking about me, or they might be saying something about me. I'm sorry.
Here we go.
Hey. Or
They don't know what you're talking about.
This must be another instigation.
Yeah. I'm not falling for it this time, though. I'm gonna let him rock.
Well, it just seems like it just was in my head, and I was looking at it, and then once I get it out, then I'll move on because I think it's all in the spirit of football. That's what I'm talking about, football.
Okay. Football, right?
But I mean, then you start thinking though that you are the butt of jokes, or somebody is talking about something over here, but then you're like, oh, you're talking about my skills or he called me a scrub, right? And if you're confident in your own abilities and know that you've been on the field or you've been in a fight or if you've been in this, then it's like, man, I ain't even tripping on that. Because I already know if somebody really wanted a challenge, then they would come talk to me. But it's not somebody just talking out. But then if you've never been in that situation, then all of a sudden you start thinking that everybody is, oh, you challenging. I'm not even thinking about you. I'm not even talking about you. I'm talking about something totally different. But it's because now you skipped that Oklahoma drill or you skipped that Saturday when you knew you was going to have to show up that first day and fight. You're just going to skip that so you can still keep talking because you don't want to be shown as something that you're not in front of your peers. Because now I want to show up like I'm just like Chief because, I don't know how much he studied, but I still want to have that same reverence that he has, or so I'm gonna stand up here and I'm gonna say it. But then when I'm gonna show up, when it's time to show up and do the studying, or if it's time to show up and show you where I've been, I'm gonna skip that day. I'm not, I'm sick that day. I don't know, but then the rest of the time when we can all show up and I can just give my input, then I'm gonna do that. I'm talking about football, because when you play,
yeah.
All right. Yeah.
You make
I
a
like
good
football.
point. You make a good. I mean, the thing is, and I'm not going down into that. Yeah. The thing, because you're like, yeah, they talking about me. Yeah, see, they talking about me. No, we're not. Well, at least the whole group isn't. But the thing is like when an individual lacks harmony, see that arrogance and pride and hubris is a result of a lack of harmony. And people, lack of harmony. And when there's a lack of harmony because there's no humility, then hubris comes forth. And there's a harmony that happens between your mind and your body, which removes fear and removes doubts. Like, it's interesting you speaking about football. When I was younger, I like a lot of my friends played football. They were on a football team, or basketball. Our school was a basketball school. More our football team was kind of doo-doo, but we were basketball champs, And I played football for a little while, but my love was really, wrestling and martial sciences. I was on the wrestling team, but it was because my situational awareness for sporting matches is extremely poor. I have trouble. We're going to run this play. Look over there. And the coach over there. And he yelling over there. Pass me the ball. Like, yo. So people who can do that, I just think are brilliant. Honestly, like you got 10 things going on at once and someone trying to take your head off and your head, man, I think that's just brilliant. I was no good at that, so when I had an opportunity to play a sport where it was like, I got one guy and all I got to focus on is hurting that person. That person wants to hurt me and I want to hurt them. That's easy. And I only got about 4 or 5 rules that I got to be respectful of. I can't punch him in the back of the head. I can't, do a rear naked choke or anything. Okay, cool. I can remember that. But there's no plays. I ain't got to remember none of that stuff. I barely got to listen to the coach, to be honest. So I was very clear on where I was good and where I wasn't. And as a result, I remember years ago when I was much younger, football coach, Mr. Coach Otero, he really loved me, wanted me to play so bad. And he took me to a college. I own a college. And we went to go see a game. It was me and about 2 other brothers. And he was like, yeah, man, you have really good hands. You could do that, this and that. These dudes were humongous. And I was looking at the way they were hitting each other. Now, I was a big dude in high school. Like I was big, truck diesel. But these dudes, these were freaking Yetis. I was like, yo, nah, hell no. I'm not doing, like, I remember I was pissed off at coach. You know what I'm saying? I was like, are you out of your mind? Yo, look at the way they're hitting each other. You can't hit me like that. No. You know what I'm saying? Because I was very clear on, was that fair? Yeah. But I was in harmony with my fear. There was no pride or hubris associated with where I had to pretend to be something else because my mind and body were in sync. I was looking at these cats run all over each other. And I said, man, one of them going to break one of my fingers. And the first thing I started thinking about, you break my finger, I can't play no instruments. I was thinking about it, and obviously there's a million and one other things that can happen to you on a football field. But that was the thing that just kept, like, the image that kept my fingers bent back this way or something. And it's that way because I got friends who play football. We're older now. They all, like, almost all my friends play football. Their fingers go that way. And they all got these messed up, crazy looking fingers. They all got bad knees. We be in Home Depot, man, I got to sit down. and I can deal with the bad knees, but don't play with my fingers. I need to play the piano. So my mind and body were in harmony in that moment, and it was a humility where it was, I'm not that. I'm other stuff, but I'm not that. So I respectfully decline. No, I'm going back to wrestling. That's my lane. I don't mind a broken arm. I don't mind a broken leg, rolled ankle. I don't care about, but do not break my fingers. So that's the thing, man. It's the harmony of humility is a deep thing. And once you get to that place, there's a and you're not arrogant, you're not overconfident. There's such a peace that comes from your statements. And sometimes people are troubled and irritated by that peace. When you're able to say, nah, good, that's not for me. Nah, that's not me. I'm all right. What do you mean that's not? What do you mean? What? They want to try to pull you out into a space where they feel comfortable because they don't know what that harmony looks like to be okay. Like, yeah, where you could even joke and laugh about it. Like how we're joking, like I'm like, you telling these things and I'm laughing. I'm like, here we go. But that's because I'm at peace and I'm in harmony. My mind and my body, everything is in harmony. So I don't have these weird feelings coming up because somebody says something or whatever. I have situational awareness, and situational awareness just doesn't give you a circumspective view. It gives you a hierarchical view. So it's around and it's up and down. So I know when a mental and a spiritual dwarf is trying to get at me, and I know I'm a giant. So I'm clear, and I'm okay with that. I'm like, all right, well, dwarfs will try to jump on your shoulders and pretend that they are you. There's the only way you're going to be able to see what I see is if you hop up on my shoulders. You can't come up here. So there's a piece with that. I'm gonna read a comment I saw real quick. Brother Michael, and I did pronounce his name one day. I was looking at the chats. So we're going to do it again. Oh, I can't read. That's too small. Brother Michael Ishmaze Mewon Rogbe Como. I messed it up, Michael. I know I wasn't the first to mess it up. All right? And I know you should be used to it by now. Okay? I'm messing with you, brother. If I messed it up, my apologies. I probably did. He says that's kind of like pain. Excuse me. We typically run from pain because we don't like how it feels. But when we get to the point of embracing the pain and integrating with it, that pain, becomes an elixir to heal. I thought that was an interesting conversation. I read it when you were talking earlier. Who was in that space? You brothers who were here, where you feel like pain now becomes like you embrace it and it's an elixir towards your healing.
Waltons. Yeah, that's a pain that'll stick with you. Also, squats. I met this brother on a construction site. Both me and my brother met him. Like I was like 17 at the time, and he said something interesting. And the way he said it made me want to try it. He said, if you could pick up 50 rocks, you can kick through a brick wall. I was like, what? Pick up 50 rocks and kick through a brick wall. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So he's like, all right, grab some rocks. So I grabbed like 10. I think I grabbed 7 the first time. And he was like, put down a rock. And I went to put it down. He's like, no, you got to do a squat when you put the rock down. I was like, okay. And then he said, all right, cool. Now pick it up. I went to pick it up. I said, no, you got to do a squat to pick it up. I said, okay. So I put it down, picked it up. He said, all right, that's 1. And he said, put down another rock. I put down the rock. And he said, no, he said, now put down 2 rocks. I was going to put down 2 rocks together. He said, no, put down 1 rock. I said, okay, put down another rock. I said, okay, now pick them up. I picked them both up. He said, no, pick them up one at a time. 1 squat, 1 squat. So the trick to that is like a mental trick. Like by the time you're done with 10 rocks, you've done 110 squats.
Mm-hmm.
And 50 is over 2,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the science. You know,
Right, right.
I went to 50 once. That was a long day. a long day. But that's one of those where it was a physical. Just talking about physical pain, like a mental pain was pushing through. It's sort of like what you were talking about earlier with pushing through fear, and I was afraid to do something. I can't remember. I think it was diving. I was just afraid of jumping head first into anything. And my brother was like, okay, you just do it step by step. And I would just do it step by step. And eventually I got like this muscle in my mind somewhere, even though the mind ain't physical. There's like this muscle in my mind where you can flex it when you know you have to push forward to do something that you're afraid to do. And eventually I got to the point where I could dive off of high places, but I was afraid of doing a backflip. And that was another one. My brother would always do backflip. Like he would do them off of rooftops when he was like younger than 10. And one day he did a backflip, he busted his head open, needed to be carried to the hospital. He got thrown too high. You know, you boost him, he got thrown too high. After he still had no problem doing backflips. No problem. Yeah. Like, all right, so if he can go through that and survive, I should be able to do a backflip. And there was the sister I was going out with at a time when I was comfortable with diving, but she wasn't. So I had to walk her through the same thing I had to walk through. And that's where that compassion came in as well. It was like, all right, I know how scared I was to do it. And I was like, all right, I'll make you a deal. I'm afraid of doing backflips. If I do a backflip, you got to dive. And that's how I got through that one. But it was like the mental pain of it.
Right.
I don't know. So I know with me, like, I think this goes for other people as well, but definitely for me, like, mentally, you'll say something is painful when it's really not, but you built that up in your head. So like you going to school, learning stuff, you could actually get a headache from that. So you're like, all right, that's painful. I don't want to do it. So
good point.
Yeah, it's like that painfulness. Once you embrace it, it could actually help you heal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's a good analogy.
Before I agree with Brother Michael, get your butt on this live and elaborate. Run to your pain as this elixir to heal, and I need you to elaborate on something. If I'm understanding correctly, that you run towards the pain in order to heal and grow. Well, where I'm looking at it, in a sense, I'm like, one could avoiding that pain could also make one grow, in the sense that, which it may push you to pain. And I'm looking at that in the sense that I have, well, it may not be pain, but it's like a fear of being average, or a fear of being in the same space and not actually growing. And which in essence would push you to pain in order to push yourself through whatever it could be. But it's like it's painful just to remain in the same space, depending on how one is looking at that. So I'm trying to figure out really what he meant by that.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one, because it's like, who's administering the pain? You know, like you ever, well, I know I have, because I'm gonna say maybe you guys too, whether I was training someone or I was being trained, there have been times when like we used to say this phrase. I used to be a part of this calisthenics group like many years ago. We used to do a lot of tricks and stuff like that. And we used to have this phrase, if you don't mind, it don't matter. You know, and we would kind of say that when, you know, the heat would be on, that, you know, everything lactating and everything. And, you know, that lactic acid's coming, and you like, man, this is hurting. And you don't mind, it don't matter. Mind over matter, you know? So in those instances, where is the pain coming from? Because sometimes you could look at someone and you could say, you got 3 more reps in you. And like, no, I don't. You do. I know you do. So, you know, and I used to be one of those people, you know, where it's like, you know, like people would always say, you get real strong on that last rep. You know, it's like, oh, we only doing 15. All right. And then how many? 2 more left. Boom, boom. All right, I'm done. You next. You know, like, like you could have did more. Now you said 15. You know, so it's like, where's the pain coming from in that sense? You know, I'm speaking on Brother Michael's comment there. It's like, is the pain coming from our own sensors within, or is it what we believe should be pain? Because the word pain itself, it means punishment. You know, it also could mean to strive for something, but essentially from poena or poena is the root word, which means to punish. So who's punishing? You know, and punishment can sort of be like a relative sort of thing, you know, or what we may perceive as being painful may not be pain. You know, it may be it just may be a new sensation that we're not accustomed to, but we classify it as pain. You know, like Isaiah spoke about, I know for me as a person, as a polyglot, when you learn new languages, this I noticed that happened when I first learned Hebrew, because a lot of the other languages I learned prior to Hebrew, they tended to make a little bit more sense, you know, so it wasn't that big of a stretch mentally. But when I learned Hebrew, was the first time there was a big emphasis on gender in the words. Mm-hmm. And it was like, this is too many words to memorize just to say like hello, you know. You know, I'm like, yo, that phrase is long. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially like when you get into numbers in Hebrew are super long. You know, it's like how we say 1040 or something. It's 1004:40. Like, so it's all these ands all the time, you know, and it was like, this is too long. But what happened, I started developing a lot of headaches when I first started learning Hebrew. And the sister who was working with me at the time, she said, oh, that's normal. That's called a language headache. She said, because what happens is that when you're learning new languages, your brain is like rewiring itself, especially a language like Hebrew, where now you're going from right to left. And every other language I learned at that point was left to right. So now you're working a totally different, even when you're reading it, you're doing this. So you're working different things in the brain, and you're getting this headache from the brain now having to rewire things than what it's accustomed to. That felt painful, but it wasn't really pain. It was just something that I never experienced and never had to do before. You know, so I kind of questioned that, you know, who's really administering this pain, you know, that we speak of.
In a sense that it would be self-inflicted pain, or is the pain administered from a society that you're trying to integrate into, and you feel like you have to take that pain on in order to be quote unquote successful? I
don't know if that's the pain. I mean, what would be the pain that we would have to, well, yeah, I mean, there are some people in Hollywood some guys who, you know what I mean? I don't think I have to finish that one. But it's like, yeah, I can see that being a pain I got to go through to now be in a movie to be, you know, I'm trying to, like, you know what I mean? I'm trying to put it a certain way, you know, Will Smith. But so it's like, you know, so just different things like that. But what would be the pains that we go through to be successful that society tells us? Like, work hard, I guess. I don't know. What would it be?
I guess you have to, what some would say, outperform your constituents when you want to move up the ladder, let's say in the corporate world. Even though you may be working against something called nepotism, that it don't matter how hard you work, you ain't gonna get that anyway. But now, and it makes me think of Amos Wilson, who said, in order to promote liberalism to the rest of the world, you have to make it look like it's happening to the individuals themselves are doing it
Right.
to themselves. And one can start to say, well, I'm not working hard enough, or I'm not doing this and that, and like in essence, no, you just going in the wrong direction. Like it was designed and set up for you not to get but so far. And then there's a couple of them that now I can point to and say, well, see, so-and-so made it, Oprah made it, this one made it, that one made it, so why can't you make it? There must be something wrong with you. You're just not working hard enough. And I'm just thinking, like, it's that pain that one can put them through, because now you're working towards something that really is not liberating for you or anybody else, other than you just trying to work your way up into this quote unquote corporate society or this world that's not going to get you anywhere. But you being able to pass off, I know so-and-so, and they'll get you, like you said this before, I think a while ago, like, I know so-and-so and they'll get you a job down there. Tell them I sent you, and then it'll get in, but not building on anything of going through that pain of building on something of substance.
I think that is an illusionary sort of thing, because like you said, someone will say, well, this one did it, that one did it, why can't you do it? Did what? Everyone does something different. I can show you the correlation between the Medu Neter, Hebrew, and the Yoruba language. Can Oprah do that? I don't know, but I never heard her show the correlation. So is she someone I should look at and say, man, I wish I achieved her level of success? I've achieved success that she hasn't achieved. I could be wrong. So I'm making an assumption that she can break down the symbols in the Medu and correlate them to ancient, Paleo Hebrew, and then correlate that to Yoruba language. Could be wrong. But so I think when we say to get there, that's the illusion of what's being pointed at in the world that gets us. It's like when Lucifer tempted Yahushua when he came out of the wilderness. And he said, I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world, right? Well, first of all, it's not yours. How the hell are you going to give me something that you didn't build? So, you start off by lying. First of all, you're a liar. And then you're giving me something that's crumbling, because anything that he pointed to, we can't even find on a map anymore. So you giving me stuff that's dying, whereas I'm building a kingdom in another dimension that does not die. Mm-hmm. Right? So I think it's our measurement of not only what we call success, but what we say people did it. They made it. Where is it? Like, what is that particular thing? What, how are we measuring that? What is our reference point? I have good friends of mine who were strung out on drugs for years, like bad, like sleeping at the bleachers down at the high school, like homeless and just on them drugs, who have been clean now for like 15, 20 years. They in church, deacons and all of that, like, to me, that's pretty amazing. If you look at it relatively speaking, mm-hmm. So someone could do that, or a person could make $2 million. I think it's harder to do that than it is to make $2 million. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would always be very curious about what it is. What is it that you're pointing at to saying, well, they did it, you could do it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think that illusion that you're talking about, a lot of it stems from the ego. And I say that because, like, the ego doesn't want us to grow. So I notice when I'm doing push-ups, I'll knock out like 100 push-ups, and I'll feel like, okay, I got 50 more push-ups left. I could get done. But I hear this voice in my head. It's like, nah, you good. Go ahead. You did what you had to do. But I used to classify that little voice as pain. Like, nah, I'm not gonna do no more push-ups because my shoulders is aching. And but when I stop thinking that's it as pain, because I'm not punishing myself doing push-ups. So when I changed my thought process, now I could step back and identify how the ego is like it's trying to push me to a place where I'm not growing. I'm not doing anything to better myself.
You take your shirt off once you bang them 100 out. Look at yourself in the mirror.
Nah, I just pound on my chest like I know what I got.
Oh, man.
So could it be said that there is necessary pain and unnecessary pain depending on where you're going? Like for example, like if I were to learn how to but we are learning how to make the correlation between Paleo Hebrew and Medu Neter, would it be an unnecessary pain to try to get where Oprah is going? Could that open the door to pains that wouldn't necessarily lead to my growth, but they would lead to me sort of distorting what I am or distorting where I'm walking?
Well, I think again that's a part of the illusion, right? Oprah Winfrey is one of the wealthiest women, we think, because we don't know, in America, right? Because that's what they tell us. You know, I don't want to be one of the wealthiest women in America. That's not my goal. You know, I don't want to, man, I don't even do my damn podcast. So, I can't do no talk show. You know what I'm saying? So I can't even be consistent with a freaking podcast. So again, it's like we look at how did these people become the models of what we can look at and say, wow, that's where we would want to be, or how do we get there? Or somebody might say, well, I want her wealth. What is her wealth? How is it being used? Do you really know how much she has? Do you know how much you even have? So it's like, again, some of these are illusionary things. I could tell you, like, one of the wealthiest I've ever felt in my life. I remember the time period and everything. My brother, my younger brother, used to have a 1989 Pontiac 6000. And this car had a digital dash. It wasn't a digital dash. The RPM thing was lights that when you revved it up, it went across like that and it would go back. That was like digital dash. It was like a smart car. You know what I'm saying? Because it wasn't no gauge doing that. It was like you light it up and it was amber lights, and then when you hit the high RPMs, it would go into the red. And we used to ride everywhere in that car. That was like, I remember this car, and at that time I was producing for a label at that time that was getting me. It was a production label, and I was getting some really important placements, on the radio back then. I'll just use that terminology because that was the big thing. That as a producer, you might meet someone, and first thing they ask you, have you placed? If you ain't got no placements, like, go on, go on, get. You ain't doing nothing, But if you were able to say, yo, I just worked on that Mariah Carey remix, or I just, I played on this one, or that, like, oh, okay. So around that time, I actually got Mariah Carey. I was getting these big placements, and we had that. I took some of my money and I was able to build a little small studio setup in our spot so we could actually work on stuff at the house. And what he and I used to do was we'd work on music, make a cassette of what we were working on, pop it in the Pontiac 6000, and we go get sandwiches. Like we go, get like big, like Subway sandwiches. They were called different back then. And we get grandma cookies. These cookies called grandma cookies. And we would just ride all around New York, playing our music, eating grandma cookies. And you couldn't tell us like we weren't like the most, we were it. You know what I'm saying? Like you see that digital dash light up, that yellow light hit you in the face, and we felt very wealthy. And it's funny, even now when we're talking sometimes, if we're going through like, that's like our running joke. I'll be like, yo, let's go get some grandma cookies, man. And it's like, yeah, that was the era, right? Yeah, that was we were killing them. That wasn't an expensive, dope vehicle then. Like that was even then that was a hoop ride. Like the Honda Accord was already out, the Maxima was out. This was like my dad's Pontiac. It was maybe my dad would let me borrow the Pontiac. It was one of them cars.
But it felt like Knight Rider.
Right, exactly. That's what it felt like. This is a digital. For us, it was everything. And we can make our own tapes now. Oh, we can drive around and listen to our own music. And we got a little extra money to buy some cookies and some sandwich. Like that was everything. And as we became older men and had children and and things like that, we always reference back to that time as like our most enjoyable and pleasurable and harmonious time, as young men. So now if you point me to another standard and say, well, look at Timberland, look at this one. This is all these different people I worked with coming up. They made it. Now the Pontiac 6000 was making it. Me and my brother are doing music together, and we riding through the city, and we young, and we working out, and we fresh faced and all of that. Nah, that was making it. We didn't know it then, but that was making it. So I think it's important to understand your point of harmony. Your sort of your intersection of harmony, and where that exists, because that's the only important thing. And if it's being able to ride around with a family member and enjoy your creation, enjoy your creation, riding around with a family member with your belly full and you're in good health, maybe that's it. For us, that was it. We didn't know that was it, but for us, that was the pinnacle. I went on to make way more money. I went on to meet way more famous people and to get way more clout. But that was always the reference. So that was actually when we made it.
That reminds me like when you talk about making it. You ever watch like those biopics of musical artists, and like their best days was like in their young days or the come up.
Yep.
Once they become a big artist, now they're getting hooked on drugs. They got all these stressors. They addicted to pills. Got to worry about concerts, and the life looks good on the outside. They got a big house, all this money. You see their name in headlights, but it's like they drowning in the middle of the street and nobody could hear them yell. That's almost what it seemed like.
Yeah, because it's the standard of what some Luciferian keeps getting in your face and saying, yeah, that's cool what you did, but you can get there. Like, yo, Yahweh Shai just finished a 40-day fast.
Right.
Who here has fasted for 40 days? You know what I'm saying? Like, damn, you fast for 40 days? All right. Nah, that ain't nothing. You could get all the kingdoms of the world.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's the standard, and he comes out the fast like, look, man. He's spitting hot fire. He's like, yo, I shall not tempt it. But everything you got to say, he's like, like his sword is sharp.
Right.
He's on it. But so what? You could have this. So I think a lot of times, man, people don't realize, I grew up playing string instruments and percussion. And I used to look at piano players. I used to think the piano was the most confusing thing because I was like, how do you know where to press? Like everything looks the same, And I'll just be like, I was always amazed by piano players. And I used to say to myself, man, if I ever get a piano, if I ever had a piano, I would play it every day, all day. Like that's all I would do if I could play the piano, and I taught myself how to play the piano and play it so well that I was getting paid to play on different records and different things like that. And hell, I'm in this room right now. I got one behind me right here and one in front of me right there. I'm in a room full of piano. These things got dust on. I ain't played them. You know what I'm saying? But I made it. I learned how to play the piano to the point that I was considered, or am still considered, a good piano player. And I wasn't there at one point. It was like a fantasy. Like if that's what you could have tempted me with. You'll be able to play the piano. You could play any song. You could learn songs and play them by yourself. And that would have been the temptation. Well, here we are now. So sometimes when we don't have proper rites of passage in our lives and in our community, we don't know when we should be benchmarking.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know when we actually, we hit some goals. We did something. My father and my uncle, back in the days, they had what's called a 4-track recorder, a reel-to-reel 4-track. Those were super. It's like having a studio, basically. But compared to what we have today, like your phone can do way more than that thing. Like it was primitive. But they used to be down in the basement working on songs and stuff like that. And as a little shorty, me sitting there like, wow, this is so cool. One day I'd love to just be able to record my own song. And then me and my brother, years later, we had a 4-track recorder. And then that turned into bigger things and better things. So, wow, my dream came true. Well, did I remember when it came true? When it's like, me and him are my pops and my uncle now. Mm. So yeah, man, I say rites of passage is critical in being able to move in a harmonious space because it allows you to take proper inventory of yourself. Some people, they get certificates and they put them up on their wall, and that helps them to categorize and inventory like, hey, I did that. I did some things, but we have things that maybe certificates are not provided for that should be noted. There's probably some sisters watching right now that remembers when they couldn't cook. And, their mothers or their grandmothers will cook everything. And man, I wish I could make stuff that tastes like that. Now you can. Did you celebrate that? Did you say something to someone? That's huge. So when now someone comes and tempts you or like Zach was saying, like you looking at me and saying, well, I could just start talking like him and say greetings. And, this dawning, I was doing it and try to sound like him. You don't know why I say good dawning. You don't know how many people laughed at me when I first started talking like that. Hell, I remember, I got to say this in a nice way. I remember I was getting ready to engage with a young lady and I said something about energy. I used the word energy. She asked something and I was like, yeah, well, it's the energy. She's like, oh, you one of those energy people. This was years ago. And I was like, yeah, put your clothes back on. I was like, nah, this ain't happening. She said, what you mean? Nah, this ain't happening. Put your clothes back on. I'm going to take you back home. You know what I mean? Like, you don't laugh at me. You know what I'm saying? You out your mind? But how many of those kind of experiences did I have before you hear me like effortlessly saying certain things. You know what I mean? So recognizing the benchmarks and those stories like that and things like that, that helps you to not be arrogant, not be prideful, but also to recognize that you are on the journey and you can smile. You can be happy. Hey man, we are getting somewhere, and then you start to enjoy the silence a little bit more because you got a journey, man. Like how often do you brothers just get quiet and just think about your life? Like not your life right now, but like go over your story, go over your chronicle, like it's like you're watching a movie. You know.
Yeah, I do that pretty often.
Uh,
Especially like I gotta say, Yumino makes me aware of some of my milestones because I'm good with art, but I don't like have any classes under my belt to say, well, you've learned this. It's all mismatched. So sometimes I feel like even if I have something advanced, it's like six more basic stuff that I didn't do and is holding the advanced thing back. And she's going through like I had her putting together a portfolio of all the old stuff, and she's like, "Look at all the stuff you did." Yeah, I guess I did kind of do that, and I'm
right.
kind of playing it, downplaying it. I was thinking about that when you were talking about even with a sister who may not have known how to cook, and she didn't celebrate it because I was like, yeah, and eventually it gets to the point where she doesn't want anyone to ask her to cook. Like she's annoyed when people ask her to cook. So you didn't celebrate knowing how to cook. You don't have nothing to balance that off the complaining off with the celebration. You just have, well, I can cook now. I don't know when the I graduated into you can cook now. I don't know where that line is. So I just keep getting asked to cook, and I still don't think I can cook. But people keep asking me to do it, and I just want a day off.
Right, right.
Guess one of those days. But I
And
do
you're right.
think about my life in terms of okay, I started there, and even in terms of I had asked about this when the sisters were doing a follow up to one of the Shabbat meetings, one of the Shabbat lives, and it was about I think you would call it knowledge storage. I had asked about if I do certain things in my life, would that then trickle down to my children?
Right. I remember.
In those terms. I remember why I asked it like today. I was thinking about it because I often think about what my father was doing when each of my siblings was born. Around the time when I was born, he was a draftsperson. He was a draftsman, right? So he would draw, and he actually had like he was designing T-shirts, which I thought was interesting. And then when my older brother was born, like before that, he was heavy into like doing a lot of business for himself. Like he just had that sort of mindset. So I was even thinking about that today. Like, okay, what about the stages in my life, and what have I birthed at each one of those stages? What's the quality of the work, and what did I leave on the table? That's often like one of my biggest questions. Like, what did I leave on the table because of fear? I could have went further, but that's like I quit while I thought I was ahead. But I didn't take everything, and what it added up to, like, what would it have been? And that kind of spurs me on, like, okay, in this moment, I got to maximize. In this moment, I got to do everything that I can, even if it's something that I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I should. It's like, no, do that because you was just thinking about this earlier about the stuff you didn't do. Like, just do it. And I do it. And it's like one of those things where, well, the pain, it, it wasn't, um, it wasn't painful. It was just the fear and pushing through that fear that was the quote unquote painful part. But it wasn't really painful. It was just a mental block that you got to push through. I'll just say this last thing. I remember you were talking to one of the brothers who was a truck driver. This is one of the old shows. I think it was Brother Tareem.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he was doing something, and you were giving him some guidance, and he said, "Okay, I'll do that." And you said something that stuck with me. It's like ain't nothing between what you want and air, and you and what you want and air, and you can walk through air. That's like
Right.
this brother is absolutely goddamn right. Yeah, but
Yeah, you know what? That's actually see this is where you start to learn to redirect certain energy, right? That's old tough guy talk. So when we used to be in situations and someone was acting like they wanted to, what we used to call it getting froggy, like you want to leap, you want to do so, oh, go on, leap, frog. You know what I mean?
right.
We would say like, well, I used to say it. I don't think I never heard nobody else say, but I'm sure I must have heard. But I used to always be like, man, ain't nothing between us but opportunity and air. You know, you want to do something, do it. You know, and it always sounded real cool because nobody ever did anything in between it. So it's not like anybody just punched me in the face like, "What? You really did it?" You know, it wasn't like anything
You're
like that
supposed to
ever
walk
happened.
away.
Right? That was my punchline. Everybody around here knows that's what I say. You know, but you translate it into other areas. Like, yeah, that's anything in life. What's stopping you? But there's only anything between you and that opportunity is air. You know, it was something that you said about the brain. I want to acknowledge something that was said by Sister Marie in the chat. I think is relevant. He said, "So does the brain anticipate a level of pain then? Because if we step on a sharp object, even if the object does not puncture the foot, the brain still receives a pain sensation. So does our brain then create those barriers based off of old experiences?" And I think that was significant when you're speaking about like maybe some of those old experiences being passed down. And I think that is a relevant thing. You know, I think about some of the what they call seasoning tactics that some of the enslaved people went through during the Ma'afa at the hands of slave makers. You know, where they would take a pregnant woman, you know, hang her upside down, cut her belly open, and then stomp the baby out in front of everybody. You know, and that would instill fear in the children of the other pregnant women. Now, I'm not saying that these people who were slave makers were genius, you know, geneticists, and they knew that, oh, we're going to affect the DNA going forward. But I'm sure they definitely did affect the way that those mothers raised those children who were still pregnant with their babies going forward. Even the process of witnessing a buck breaking, you know. So I think that there is, in that same instance, and I'm going by what you said, and also what Sister Maria said in the chat. I think there is a memory that is there. Like, you know, I spoke about that before in terms of scars that we have. If we know pretty much everything renews itself within 7 years, and that's not to say like your body does a full flush and renew every 7 years, because your stomach lining renews itself every 3 days. You know, so there's certain things that renew even faster. You know, but if you had a scar since childhood, you only have it because you have a memory that says keep the scar there. Because if you have new skin cells, why would you still have a scar? You know, so I would say that if you're able to maintain that within your psyche, within your body, yes, why not be able to maintain a fear response, like how we see with certain animals know to avoid certain traps. Like certain traps don't work anymore. You know, mice, old mouse trap, no, they don't hardly work anymore. You know, they know to avoid the mouse trap, you know, or like with roaches, they always have to come out with new updated formulas for roach sprays because they evolve. They be freaking putting that stuff on like it's lotion. Hey, aim some more of that raid, pass it over.
Roaches are like dogs now. They just come up to you and sniff you. You turn on the lights, they don't even run.
They don't even run when the lights come on. They used to electricity now. Like, we know what this is. You ain't gonna do nothing.
Yeah.
You can't reach us. By the time we be under the cabinet before you see us. So, you know, I do think that there is a memory that is maintained. And, you know, as far as Sister Maria said, the mind is a very powerful thing. You know, you think about, you can see certain images and vomit. You know, you think about how powerful that is. You can smell certain things. I have certain times where I shouldn't eat. Certain things I should never really eat, but I can get away with it at times. But I have found, like, if I'm walking around GMO food, I start sneezing. you know. And before I was like, you know, why the heck does this keep happening? Especially used to always happen down the bread aisle and down the nut butters aisle, like the peanut butter stuff, because peanut butter has a lot of pesticides in it, you know. And I started realizing it's not just that my system can smell the peanut butter through the jar or the bread or whatever. It knows, it has a memory of when you ate this before and you woke up with your eyes puffy and you were sneezing and you had all of this mucus. So just walking down the aisle, it's almost like when you're home, you're straight until you pull up in the drive and all of a sudden you gotta go to the bathroom. You know, as soon as those keys come out and jiggle and you're next to your door, you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You know, but you were straight the whole time until, you know, that's how powerful the mind is. So, you know, in response to that, I would believe the same thing, you know, Sister Maria, that, yeah, you know, there would be that memory if I stepped on something, even though it didn't puncture me, there's a pain sensation because I'm holding on to the memory of that, you know, and probably for my own protection.
Okay, so I I was at work today, right? I worked a job with a friend of mine. There's a construction gig, and we had to do a lot of stripping of old rotting wood in order to replace it with new wood. And some of the wood, the person whose house we're working on, it had like a lot of plants and potted plants and stuff like that. And I had to move some stuff out of the way in order for the ladder to sit like level and flush. So I reached into the bush, it's like a short little shrubbery, to grab a piece of wood, and I got stung from a wasp, right? And this wasp was like, this was like a prison beef, shanking. It's like Dave Chappelle, like stop. So, but I kind of walked it off, you know, because that's what you learn. Like you know, it's like just put ice on it, ice, shake it, that's it.
Right.
Good. But I had to learn that, you know, because when you're young, you have this like real palpable fear of anything that could sting or bite you.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't like spiders, I don't like wasps, I don't like bees. Get them away from me. And then when you see people with pet spiders, it's like they must be crazy. Ain't no way, you know. But you get used to it after a while. You don't go towards it. In terms of, I see a wasp nest, it's like, all right, it's stinging time. It's like, it's not like that. But if you encounter it, you sort of understand what it is, and you understand that it's temporary and you can take it. I'm thinking about that in terms of evolving or being able to evolve and work through pain as opposed to trying to work around it or get away from it. But for someone who has always avoided those types of things, like you could go through many stages of your life, like chronologically, not having experienced that pain. So you'll always have that fear of something that could bite you or something that could sting you. Would that be an example of how pain helps you to mature?
I don't know about that one. I think some maybe, but I think that's when you're kind of in that space, like you said, something happens when you're younger. I think you're living a what if life, and I think what if has different polarities, you know, and what if can be the catalyst for the manifestation of an amazing vision in your life. But what if could also keep you in a place of fear, and most of the time, fear is based around what if. You know, what if I fall? What if I get stung? What if I'm allergic now? I wasn't allergic before. What if I'm allergic now? What if it goes down my throat and stings all my organs? You know, what if? And that's the opposite of, like, when you acknowledge, you know, it's like, for those who may have, whether you might have younger siblings, young cousins, or if you have children, like I have taught my youth how to swim, right? And that question always comes, you know, what if I go under the water? What if I drown? And it's like, so I'm just gonna sit here and watch you drown. I'm saying, like, I'm gonna be sitting there watching, like, already think about the obituary. What we gonna bury you in? You know, like, I'm here. You know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of times the what ifs keep us from growth because it keeps us out of a space like where we're not acknowledging that the Most High is here, and the Most High is providing universal resources to keep us sustained. You know, so whenever that awareness of the fact that we're covered is present, then we live the bad side, I would say, of what if. What if I get stung? What if I just what if I, so what? You get stung, you get stung. You be all right. you know, because like just like, and I don't know if anyone's ever, remember learning how to swim. I can't remember like my mother taught me how to swim, but I remember like her trying to teach me how to float on my back, which to this day I'm an excellent swimmer. Can't float on my back. Well, won't float on my back. Let me word it that way, because I've never trusted the water, and she would always say that, just trust the water, just go back, and then I would go back and then like as soon as some water get in my nose. You're doing that thing. It's stinging. Oh, and it's like, you're never gonna learn this until you learn to trust the water. And then once that water will go, so now I got a memory of that chlorine or that salt water going up my nose and breathing that in. And now I'm terrified. I don't ever want to do it again. So I'll just swim forward. I don't ever need to swim backwards. So that's the thing. It's like that what if, living in that what if without recognizing your parent is here. Like, you're not going to drown. In fact, they have their hands under you.
Right.
So you literally cannot even fall. Like, they're holding you like this. All right, I got you. Come on.
You can provide me with food, clothing, and shelter. I don't trust you.
You looking away. So you got all these different things. But that's what we're saying to the Creator. Mm-hmm. You ain't watching. You ain't now. You gonna let me fall. So you live in what if.
Right. I'm kind of laughing too because you mean to put an inside joke in the comment. My brother had a friend in high school. Like, they all went to the canal, and it's like the canal is like a carved out. Sometimes it's man-made, but it's like this big chasm between one set of rocks and another set of rocks, and it's usually like 10, maybe even 20 feet deep.
Like a quarry, like a rock quarry.
Yeah. And the water could just flow in and out. So my brother and his friends, he told me the story because they have a friend. They just call him Bubbles, and no one knew why. I didn't know why until he told me the story. So it's like, why is his name Bubbles? It's like, we were at the canal, and everyone jumped in to swim across. And when everybody got out, there's like, where's so-and-so? Like, his actual name. They called him by his name. It's like, where's so-and-so? And they looked at the water, and they just saw Bubbles. So someone had to jump in and save him and bring him back to shore. And it was like, you all right? He's like, yeah. But I was so excited to jump in with y'all, I forgot I couldn't swim. So now his name is Bubbles.
That's a good example, though. Like, my crew was here, though.
Yeah.
He's still alive.
Let me drown. He's still alive.
Right. That's really the key. When you recognize that circumspection, that's what say the harmony. The harmony comes in that. It will guide your every move when you recognize, like, what this storm that I'm going through or whatever, as long as I stay within the will of the Creator, I'm straight. Yeah, I might get rocked around, might even get bruised up and roughed up a little bit, but if I'm in the will of the Creator, that means I'm covered. I'm straight. So that, I think that's maybe sometimes the hardest part, and people don't want to learn that will, or for whatever reason, So yeah, it's the what if reality,
That reminds me of two things. One thing is when you said before, like, I know that this isn't how I go. Like,
yeah,
it's like you just know in that moment, like, nah, it ain't gonna end like this. So I'm gonna just move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, that's and I'll give you that. There was a book I read. I think I mentioned it many, many years ago. I read a couple of them actually on the same person, Sundiata. Sundiata was a king in Mali. And you know, there's a couple of books on Sundiata, but in one in particular, and I don't remember the author, but he was speaking about like him being a young prince, and he was like, certain things were just expected. Like, yeah, people serve me. That's what happens. That's that. You're supposed to serve me. You know, and it was like kind of a knowing of like who I am and accepting. And then there was something where he was going through something, and he was like, this will not be my end. And I know it's a very simple sort of line, but it just hit me a certain way. And I started looking at, because I have been through situations where it was like, that could have been it. But then when I think back on it, not for me, it just doesn't, it doesn't really fly with my life. I was in Texas. First time I ever went to Texas, this was back in the 90s. And I was somewhere I had no business doing something I had no business doing. And they used to have these cars called the Sterling. They don't make them anymore. But the Sterling was it was a hot car back in the day. It was like the Acura Legend or the Acura Vigor. It was like a hot car. And my man had his name, whatever. My man had a Sterling, and we were at this like apartment complex, and we were waiting for somebody. And I was getting sleep. I was like, man, we've been out here for a minute, man. I'm tired. So he was like, man, go ahead, lean the seat back and, what I'm saying, get a couple of Z's, whatever. I'll keep watch, basically. So I go to lean the seat back, on the side. And as soon as I lean the seat back, a bullet comes through the window and hits the doorpost, where the seatbelt goes in. As soon as I went back, I went like this, boom, hit the doorpost, hit the doorpost. We obviously was able to get up out of there, whatever. And I remember, like, that was it. Like, because where the post was, like, I had my head laying on, I was like this, laying on the side on the post. Right before he was like, man, lean the seat back. And I remember, like, years later, like, getting into other things in life and stuff, and I was like, yeah, there's a reason why I was saved in that situation. I'm not supposed to die like that. It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up with the math of my life. It doesn't look right. Like, it's like, if Niall's last name was Horowitz, you know what I mean? Now, like the Egyptian now, Horowitz. Like, nah, I don't really, those two don't go together. Menelik Spiegel. Nah, it doesn't quite roll off the tongue correctly. So it was kind of like shot in some projects, some housing projects in Houston, Texas. Nah, that ain't it. It could be something else, but that ain't the way. Because it's like the movie we watched, Adjustment Bureau. Like, it's been written already, son. It's been written, and that ain't the end. I have a friend I grew up with. He was heavy into drugs when we were young, like really, really heavy. Like, he'd been to rehab more times than I could count. And he grew up to be kind of a respectful guy. He owned like two gas stations. Like, he died on the toilet a couple years ago. Died on the freaking toilet. I think he had a heart attack or something like that. He wasn't. I don't think he might have been 50. I don't think he was 50 yet. But I remember when it happened, it was like, first thing was, everybody said like, yo, I was like, man, all them drugs in the system. Because my stupid self always blurting out something. But I'm like, he had that coming. Like, what I'm saying? Like, he lived a crazy life. Yeah, well, the drugs. He was more drugs than human. So that's how I kind of looked at it. So like, yeah, okay. It figures he would die some kind of funny kind of that. It's sad, but it's like kind of funny. At the same time. So yeah, you got to know how your situation is written, man, and you can feel where your path is, where death is.
There's a movie like that. And it's funny because two things overlap in the movie. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up. Because when you said this isn't how I go, that was one of the lines in the movie. And
Mm.
another line that was related to it. Because long story short, the movie's name is Big Fish.
Okay,
And
we'll look that up.
yeah, there was three boys. There's like a very in the middle of nowhere hick town, and like three or four boys went into the woods because they heard that a witch lived out there, and they wanted to check it out. So they go to the witch's house and they're just sharing stories like what they heard, the rumors they heard about the woman. But then one of them said, "I heard that she has a glass eye, and if you look into it, you see how you die." And so she shows up and they all like she has an eye patch covering it and she lifts it up and they all look into her eye. And sure enough, one of them dies on the toilet of a heart attack.
Mm.
And another one dies, like he's installing something and he falls. And there's a third one. I can't remember how the third one dies. And the fourth one was the main character. They don't show how he dies. But after that encounter, because the first three they saw it and ran, and the last one stayed behind. And he was like, "Well, show me. I want to see." So she shows him, and he's like, "Oh, okay." And after that, like his life was like he knew what would kill him, so his life like took an upward turn. And there was a point where he has to go through these woods, and it like they show like a manifestation of his fear where all the trees are grabbing him, all kind of spiders are jumping on him, and then he starts, and he's like, "Wait, this isn't how I died." And then everything let him go. Like to show like that was all in his mind. But I
Mm.
thought that was like a powerful
Interesting.
line. I always
Yeah.
kept it with me, but it's funny how you but not funny, but it was interesting how you mentioned both those things and they happen like in the same scene.
Right.
You know? But
Interesting.
I want to go on mute because I know Brother Michael was trying to get on.
Yeah, we got him. Came in. I think he was here.
I'm
He was-
interested in his last name. Let's go. All right. Well, why are we waiting on it? There's something I want to ask you. And then if he comes in, I'm going to pause. But while everybody was talking, the thing that kept popping in my head was pain tolerance. And one's body having a high pain tolerance, but also, though, maybe one having a pain tolerance of going through something that they shouldn't go through. And then thinking of that saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And then I'm thinking of when Amos Wilson had said something about, when people get called the N-word. And then all of a sudden you show them just how much of an N-word you are because you now react to a certain word that you feel has now caused pain. Is it because of the lack of, like you were saying, the maybe rites of passage, the lack of culture, or what would cause one to not really know or to almost put themselves through pain that they don't have to put themselves through pain with? And then knowing when that they should actually put themselves through that pain in order for themselves to grow.
I would say a lack of knowledge of self and also a lack of true jegnas that we grew up around. There's some things that I remember when I first started bodybuilding back when I was like 18, 19 years old. I had friends who were like bona fide bodybuilders who were older than me. And we would go to the gym and certain things, they'd be like, "Oh, you ain't got to do that. That's just a backbreaker. Leave that one alone. Do this over here." Certain things are more efficient than other things, and I'm like, it all hurts. All of it makes me feel like I'm, pumping up my muscles, but nah, you just gonna hurt your back doing that for no reason. And it's very little benefit. So they were like jegnas, and that's in that environment, if you will. But having knowledge of self allows us to see what is for us and what isn't. You even think about the N word. We were taught to be upset when someone says it, right? It's funny to me most of the time. Yeah, I find racism very funny. I don't care. I don't care. Anybody can feel about your ancestors died. Yeah, I know all that. I know. I read all the books and I watched the documentary. But racism be funny sometimes to me, you know. And I like I love Archie Bunker, All in the Family. Like I like racist shows. You know what I'm saying? You know, because racists most time be real ignorant, and their ignorance is funny to me. You know, they'd be like, "Oh, go back to Africa." What? Like that's hilarious to me. Like I was here before you were here. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I find them funny. You know, a lot of times. So, but that's because I have knowledge of self. So because I have knowledge of self, I know what applies to me and what doesn't apply to me. You know what I mean? Like someone can say, "Oh, you N-word." What does that word mean? And don't tell me no nonsense about it mean an ignorant person. Stop. It doesn't mean that. What does it freaking mean? Where does it come from? Because it doesn't even sound like English. You know, and I know you can't tell me, and that alone I'll start laughing at. That's funny to me. You know, so I think having knowledge of self, and I guess every person is different. I look at a lot of what we go through in life and a lot of the classifications that are put on us is chess. I'm not going to get emotional if I'm losing a chess match. I don't care what's at stake. I'm not getting emotional. And when you understand that we are walking through a matrix of chess, it's not checkers, you start to look at the moves that your enemy makes sometimes, and instead of getting upset, you'll even say, "I'm gonna copy that." You know, I'm gonna take that. Like, "Oh, okay, I see what you just did there. I'm gonna do that." I look at the alphabet community all the time because I'm old enough to remember when they were just getting started out in San Francisco, and I'm smart enough to do research to know how small they really are. Less than 4% of the U.S. population. But they are now, they run, or they're leading second in litigation in the United States. Now, you know what other group is number one, the small hats. But you say something about the alphabet people, you're getting sued. Period. And they're less than 4% of the population. And look at how many things that they've affected, bathrooms and policies in public school and all of these different things, even gotten certain activities, you know, classified as a hate crime if you assault one of them. And their numbers are so small. So I study them. I've watched so many documentaries and so many movies about them and things like that, because I'm looking at it like chess. How the heck did y'all do that so fast? And we've been trying longer than y'all. But how did you do it overnight like that? You know, we have an area in New York City in Brooklyn called Little Haiti. And I know a lot of the people in that area, and they complain that it was renamed Little Haiti because it's an area where there's many islands. Like everyone who lives there is from an island. Everybody, right? But they always be arguing with each other. You know, cats from Grenada don't like the Jamaicans. You know, the Bahamians don't like the Guyanese. The Trinis don't like anybody. You know, so and the Haitians came through, was like, well, we just Haitian. Like we that's it. We ain't got all the extra stuff. We're just Haiti. We're one spot, and they took over in like 15. It only took like 15 years. Now the area is called Little Haiti. You know, so I look at that other group, that alphabet group. I'm like, man, they're smaller than us. There's less of them than it is of us. But who's us? Because they were able to say, even in their classifications, we'll even embrace some of this other stuff. You know, if you down for the cause, we'll embrace some of this other stuff. We'll make the you know, the acronym, or we'll make it longer.
We'll keep adding colors to the flag.
Right, exactly. We got more flags, more colors to the flags. We'll just keep going with this as long as you down for the cause.
They gonna tie
Because
it out of the plus side.
because they already know more stuff is coming.
Mhm.
They know more stuff is because they know what the agenda is. You gotta get them babies. So the thing about it is that I think and this is still in answering your question, Aki Zach. I think there's a lack of knowledge of self, and there's a lack of scholarship. To truly know what we should be aiming for, what we should be upset at.
Get him, get him, get him, get him. Get him while he's here.
Peace, brother Michael. Shalom.
Peace, Chiefs.
Peace.
Brother.
Peace.
All right.
It's a pleasure to be on with you guys, and thank you for allowing me on. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Having some trouble there, man. It was crazy because I was in a spot, and then like everything deadened out, and my phone said for the longest that I didn't have any kind of connection. Right. So yeah, it was weird, but I'm here. So
Glad to have you here. I know Zach wanted to explore. He just wanted to debate. You should know by now. You've been watching long enough. You know what it's in. So I'm not even gonna let him sneak attack you like that. So what you saying then is
help me to understand this, brother. Help me
to understand, brother.
None of this is true. Okay.
So what you want to ask him, brother Zach?
Brother, I just wanted to explore the question. That's all. But what did you mean when you said it's the pain part of the healing? I just wanted to make sure that I was walking with you when you asked that, and I wasn't just answering something that I felt like I thought I knew what you were asking. That's all. So just what did you mean when you said pain is part of the healing? Like what is that pain?
So what I was referring to was just any kind of circumstance that somebody may go through when it just may be painful for them, and let's say for example the pain of feeling like maybe one is inadequate because they're not able to get out in public speak or something like that, which ties in with fear, but it's a tough something because they want to get out and they want to speak, but they haven't conquered that fear of wanting to get out and speak. So once they conquer that fear of wanting to get out and speak, for example, they can take that pain and that empathy of knowing like, okay, well, I was beating myself up because I felt like I couldn't do this thing or do that thing, and finally come to the ability of realizing, okay, well, you know what, I can speak, I can do this kind of thing, and hey, when I see somebody who had that same kind of face I had or that same kind of expression I had when I was trying to get out and speak, I can maybe go out and minister to them and tell them like, hey, I see that you're kind of nervous. I had trouble, speaking to something along those lines, and kind of help them with that aspect. As a brief example,
I got one follow-up.
We all know you, brother. Like
you got at least six.
At least six. And each one's gonna be like, all right, last one.
Yeah. Does that pain start to come from comparison? In essence, because how would you know that you couldn't do something unless you saw someone else? Like, is that what starts to bring on one's own pain?
I would definitely believe so in many instances. Uh, I think at some point we all have some kind of measuring stick, to kind of measure things by, and there is something that we're always comparing, ourselves to. And when we see that somebody else can do a thing, and we may not be confident in doing a thing, or they are kind of shining out in such a way that you may wish you could shine out, and that you're capable of shining out, but something's probably holding you back. It becomes excruciating, I guess, to some individuals. So yeah, I would definitely say that there is a comparison factor, and then there may even just be a belief factor in oneself that that they know innately that they can do a thing, but they may not know necessarily how, and that can be excruciating as well in some cases, I think. But again, of course, that's where exploration and knowledge and trying to understand oneself and the world around them kind of comes into play, I think. So.
Well, I said I had one question, but it was in two parts, so I didn't get out.
Surprise, surprise.
That was the first part. This is the last part of the one question that I was going to ask, and then we done.
I know y'all heard that, right? The last part of the one. All right, cool.
It's question 1A and question 1B.
Right.
And it's going to be questions, but it's still one question.
I guess this goes back to then when I was asking Chief, like, how do you start to get beyond the comparison then when knowing that your environment will always outweigh your teaching, and the environment is always almost making you feel inadequate? Like anytime somebody's trying to sell you something, they have to make you feel less than in order to get you to buy into, almost in a sense, like, you want these jeans? Well, look at her butt in these jeans. You want your butt to look like these jeans? Oh, I don't have a butt like that. Let me buy these jeans, right? Or you want my speaking course, and you want to talk like, and then they point to somebody who might be degrading, and you start comparing yourself to that. Like, how do you start to ground yourself and root yourself to understand that, maybe that pain is like what she was talking about, being that illusion, as opposed to this pain I just need to sink into, to do this, to be this for my community? Like, how do you start to decipher those?
That's a good question.
Last part too, I swear.
That's a good question. I would say that maybe it's one of those things where you just have it innately, and it's just something that you just know that you can come out and do, but you're not quite sure on how to go about doing it. Like, it's a belief, I would think. But right, it's about jumping into the action and getting the experience of it. But I that's a good question. Like Zach. I think for me, it's one of those things where if you can do it, but you're not sure how to do it, you eventually will want to do it. But if you're in an environment that's maybe not producing or conducive to where you can kind of see yourself doing those kinds of things, then I think that's all the more reason why it has to probably be more innate, and one has to be able to want to seek and see if there's the possibility. But beyond that, right, if you don't just have that natural desire to want to, I guess, make a thing happen, then it probably won't happen. If that answers the question, out of all the parts.
Aki Isaiah wanted me. You want me to ask him, Aki Isaiah?
So this is 3 of 6.
You was gonna ask him anyway.
He wanted me to ask you how you say how your last name.
Go for it.
How you pronounce your last name?
Last name? Come on. But the other name, the other name. So those are two first names. So it's Michael, and then it's so the shortened form is Isimaze, which Chief got right on that last portion there. But the full name is Isimaze Oriole. It's Edo.
It's what? What was the last part? I'm sorry.
It's
Edo.
Edo.
Edo. Edo.
Oh, okay.
So I think to ride off of the concept that we have to know the difference between, like, sometimes what we're referring to that we have a fear of is really an anxiety. You know, Brother Michael, can you mute out for a second? I think there's a scratchiness. Yeah, there we go. It went away. Okay. So I think there's an anxiety. And sometimes because fear and anxiety come from the same place, they come from a desire to distance ourselves from what we're afraid of, you know? But anxiety is more of a cognitive process, whereas fear is more of emotional. And I think sometimes, you know, and based on what you're saying, like he was saying, like, okay, well, somebody might be, you know, have a fear of being a public speaker. I think sometimes it's not just that you're afraid of speaking publicly, but you have a fear of a fear or a fear of an anxiety. So what's underneath that? It's not just I'm afraid to get up in front of people. Maybe it's I'm afraid to look stupid. You know, there could be something that's underneath it that you're afraid of, and then you've built a fear on top of that, which is it becomes a reflective fear. You're afraid of the fear of the fear, you know, in that sense. So some of the things, it's difficult when you're just kind of looking at it as a fear. It's very hard to trace an emotion. But when you see it as an anxiety, it becomes easier to trace a cognitive process, because an anxiety is typically a result of a breakdown of your cognition, you know. So I think if you look at it that way, then it kind of may help to answer the question a bit more. Like you said, well, if there's a comparison, you know, you may not need a comparison. You know, you may have a fear of public speaking because you don't like how your voice sounds, and you're afraid that people are going to make fun of your voice. So it's not that you're really afraid of public speaking. You have a fear of being ridiculed about your voice, you know, and that becomes your anxiety, you know, and it just, you know, had to sneeze real quick. You know, so yeah, so I think when you get to the root, it helps a little bit more, but think of it more cognitively than more emotional. That's the thing with fear. When fear comes in, the cognition goes out the window. So you don't even know is this an anxiety or a fear, because you're feeling at that point, you know.
Is that like one starts to cover up their authenticity? Because I remember the post that you had, that one where the dude was like, really had a deep voice, but then he was like, I wasn't getting any jobs or anything like that. So I learned to talk like this. But then it's like, does that in order to fit in or to mask that fear, you then have to mask your authenticity in order to feel accepted by the dominant society?
Well, let's go to that. Why do you feel that you would not be accepted? See, that's the fear. The fear is not like, I feel like I won't be accepted. Who cares if you are or aren't? Why is the fear, you know, circling around if I am accepted or not accepted? Because that's actually the reason. That's the cause, not the other thing. So you have a fear of a fear. You see, and sometimes it's a fear of what you'll have to deal with. I put in that post, I did that my whole life. like make my voice higher. Sometimes I still catch myself. I do it now. I catch myself. You know, I've done it on live. Sometimes if you ever see me doing a live and I'm constantly doing that with my nose, you know, it's because sometimes my nose will itch because I came out of I usually like to shower right before I go live just to kind of refresh. But what happens is that I'll start doing this. I'll hold my head like this. That thins out my voice. And I'll start speaking through my nose more. And that takes the bass out. But because it's all that bass, my nose is vibrating. So now I'm like, I get to this point, I'm about to sneeze because I got my voice going through my nose because I'm trying to take the bass out. And I don't do it consciously. It's just from years of doing it, talking like this. Yeah, you know what I mean? Da-da-da, instead of talking like my real voice. You know? So now, but why do I do that? Is it because I'm afraid I won't be accepted? I don't give a damn about being accepted. It's, you know, I don't care nothing about none of that. I never did. Because I have a old, which I didn't think was trauma, but my siblings used to make fun of my voice when I was small. You know, we'd all be in a room, everybody laughing and joking, and then I come in, and it's like, you know what I'm saying? Because I was a little boy with this voice. So it would be like, and then of course they'd be like, they used to always do that whenever I would talk. They would go, you know, so I'd be like, oh, whatever. You know, I'm just keep eating my cereal, but I'm really hurt. You know? So then as an adult man, you start to thin the voice out because now you couple it with other things. What is the other thing you couple it with? Well, you happen to grow to be a big guy. And when you speak, you know, some people treat you differently because they feel it. They feel your energy. They feel your testosterone. But you're nice. You're kind. You're funny. I want you to see that part. All right, so let me get this part out the way so you can see the real me. Mm-hmm. Right? But if I was to trace it, it goes back to, and when I'm talking, we were all little kids. My siblings making fun of my deep voice and calling me Froggy. So the acceptance wasn't, you know, whatever was happening in an adult life. It was a fear, most likely, of going back and speaking to that little boy and telling him it's all right. Sometimes siblings are jackasses. Don't worry about it. You know, but I never spoke to that little boy. I never thought about it. I never thought it was a big deal, but it manifests itself in adult behaviors. And you're thinking, oh, that's because I'm just going to be very direct. You don't want to scare white people. So take some of that bass out of your voice. But it ain't really that because you scare them anyway. You know, and so it's not that. It's the little boy doesn't want to be laughed at. You know, so that's the thing. Sometimes it's rooted in a fear of a fear of a fear of a fear. And when you use it, when you look at it as a cognitive process and how it may manifest, then you can understand it, you know, at a deeper level, and you can eradicate it. You know.
All right.
He's waiting on you, brother Zach. He's waiting on you.
I don't want to, I don't want to hog up all the time. But when Billy Fuller says everything can evolve back to racism, right? And I'm only saying this because when you spoke about, you know, hanging a woman upside down, cutting her abdomen open, like, is that where one can start to, if we keep tracing and tracing back, that one can start to point to where these fears start to come from?
No. I would say that everything evolves back to politics, you know, which exists before racism. Racism is born out of a need for empowerment politics by certain groups. You know, we could apply that, but it doesn't really apply because I could say, well, why didn't my siblings say, you really got an African voice? Wow. You when you get older, you're going to have a deep African voice because that wasn't, you know, the thing to have. Nobody cared about that. But so we could say, well, maybe that was an effect of white supremacy, racism, but I don't believe it was. That misunderstanding of what a man evolves into, or how certain young people come with things naturally, and we need to protect them in a different kind of way. That's a result of disempowerment politics. In the same way I was born, I was a big child. I never looked my age because I was always like huge. And I had this deep voice. There were little girls who developed earlier. Like, we don't like to talk about it because it sounds weird, especially as grown men now. But there were certain young girls who they understood the mission from early on. They understood the mission, but then we look at them and say, okay, well, that's something special. They're evolved, so we need to protect that because that's going to grow into something important. Or we look at a young man like maybe I was and say, oh, okay, protect that because they've already started ahead of time because they got something important to do. So I would say that that's not just a racial thing, but it's a political thing, and it's a lack of understanding how the politics and the inner working of our own community should transpire. How we identifying each other. So there are certain things that we come through with that, hey, like how the football and the wrestling thing happened. The football coach, we were in the weight room, and this sounds kind of sus, but it wasn't sus. It just sounds sus. I had these shorts on. We were working out, and he looked down at my legs. He's like, "Man, you got some big legs." I know how it sounds, but it did. We were in the weight room, man. You know what I mean? So it was tough. It was tough stuff happening.
It was a different time.
It was a different time, exactly. Our shorts were shorter back then. So and I was doing overhead presses, and I was like sitting and doing it. He looked down. He's like, "Man, you got some big legs." He said, "You should play ball." Yeah, that sounded kind of. But y'all know what I'm saying. Like, come on, man, be mature, brother. But that's an example of identified something early. Like, oh, this pup got big paws. So they're designed for something. So are we identifying each other in the same way, or are we finding ourselves because of those differences that really have identified our roles early on? We're downplaying those so that we can, fit into some mold of subpar normalcy. That's the fear underneath, because we don't have political systems within our community to identify each other properly and then teach us how to govern ourselves as such. I should have been on a debate team. I should have grew up on debate teams and stuff.
It's like how everybody in a community, they come with like these different gifts and talents and abilities. And in certain societies, there may not be a place for them that they can actually exhibit those gifts and talents and abilities. So it's like they grow up not knowing, like, dang, where do I fit in? What do I do? And so in order to fit in, or because they may have a fear because somebody made fun of them because they didn't know where they should be, it's like, now I'm gonna suppress that, or I'm gonna push that to the side in order to be in this box. That's really not the glyph that they're supposed to be, shining.
Right. Making.
Yeah.
And sometimes the gift it's sometimes because of people's lack of vision, the gift is exalted too much. Like a lot of times in the melanin rich community, there's only two gifts. If you're a girl and you're pretty, if you're a dude and you're tall. So if you're tall, you should be playing ball. If you're a girl and you're pretty, you should model. That's it. There's nothing else that we identify because of our lack of political awareness and empowerment within the world stage. So you can either play ball, or you can get you a ball player because you pretty. Everything revolves around basketball. You know, so that's part of the like you said, like we're not identifying, and sometimes we're overlooking the gifts and not realizing the character, or we're compressing the gifts, you know, because of our lack of understanding. It can only be this thing. When I see a tall child, for me personally, even though I don't say it, I see a salesperson. I see an advocate. That's the first thing that always goes through my mind. You know, tall people do great in sales, but they also do great in any kind of work where they have to address crowds as an advocate because they inspire confidence. I never think of sports. It just is what it is. If I see a pretty young lady, I get nervous. The only thing that goes through my mind is all the guys are going to come at her, and females, with nonsense and make her think that pretty is her only value. You know, so it depends on where your political perspective is. I'd say, you know, before racism.
It makes me think of like how you said with the 14 keys. I remember watching a lecture where you spoke about how as a community, we don't need like all these organizations and groups and stuff. We need a collective like code of how we do things.
Right. Right.
And it's like we have to know, okay, how do we treat someone who's tall? How do we treat someone who comes like this if they're young and they develop this way? Like we have to have a code to deal with that, and then also a code to protect that. Because what are we going to do about the guy that looks at that girl when she's young and she's developed, and he's looking at her funny and he's dealing with her funny? What do we do about that? Because that happens too much.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
We have to have a collective way that we deal with that.
Right. And see, that's the thing. And once you have those you'll be surprised how quick things dissipate when it's very clear on how that's handled. Now, we do know that it does get handled, but it only gets handled if you're dealing with children, or you do something really heinous, you go to jail, if somebody looks at your paperwork, you about to be in for a rough ride, right? But is that really community and collectivism? Like we can even, and I'm not trying to take any thunder away from it at all, but we could look at like what Kendrick Lamar did recently when he brought all of the different cats from different sections onto one stage, and then he did They Not Like Us again, right? And everyone's talking about it right now, the unity and this and that. Well, in my era, we had a project called Banging on Wax. You could look it up. And it was a music project that was done on the West Coast, where these Bloods and Crips, these different cats who was rivals at one point, got together and they did a tape, you know, but like a music project. It was called Banging on Wax. And there was a little piece for a little while. Cool, I'm with that. Yeah, all that. But what's the code? Yes, Kendrick brought them all on stage, and yeah, but what's the code that we're working with now going forward? Because we already had Banging on Wax. That was a thing in the 80s, 90s, early 90s, right? Then went right back a couple of years later, we going at it again. So the establishment of a code would now say going forward, this is how we view each other. But that code has to be based on identity. See, without history, you can't create a code. So that's the key, to keep you blind, deaf, dumb, and blind from your history. You'll never have a code. You see, it's just like us as melanin rich people. Everybody on this live right now is a different patina. Some of us are a little browner, a little lighter, a little redder, a little brown, you know, a little darker, a little brown, whatever. We all a different patina, but we're calling each other brother. Why are we calling each other brother? Because we understand the historical experience. We understand the diversification. So we know that there was one big giant black cooking pot. And out of that big giant black cooking pot, a bunch of different colored vegetables came out. That's us. We get it. We all came from the same pot, though. So that one historical thing allows us to call each other brother. All right, so we know how to talk to each other, at least in that sense. But what are all the other things? Like you said, how do we deal with criminality? How do we deal with sexual immorality and sexual assault and all of these different things like that? across the board. It even in terms of our mating. I said this years ago. I'm say it again, and I know sisters, you ain't gonna like this, but whatever, man. I don't really care. I said years ago, as men, if you meet a woman and she has a man on child support, do not date her. Right? I've been saying that 25 years now. And I have a couple of brothers who that's been our code. We will not mess with you if you have someone on child support. And I know that there's things, well, he got to take care of his kid, whatever. Yeah, I get you, but there's some things that existed before that happened that got you to that point. So now, if you start having a code like that, I got another crew who set up a code where they don't deal with single mothers at all. That's a serious code, because now it makes a sister think twice before getting into a relationship or possibly having children with someone that they haven't properly vetted. If they knew, like, if this does not work out, I may not get another man. Let me really think about what I'm doing here. Maybe bring in some other voice and some other eyes and really vet this guy to make sure that he's not someone who's not going to be here. Or let me, for some, not play that game and chase him off because I just wanted a baby. That code can be very powerful.
Yeah, I was thinking as you were both talking about that code, like how do we deal with this one, or even like the proper placement. That alphabet community came back to mind again in terms of if someone is rejected by society because they have they're dysexual in any type of form, all right, we'll scoop them up, and we'll gain our numbers that way. That's how we build our army. Whoever is out here, and they have like certain sort of rhetoric for recruitment. Like, you feel misunderstood, no one understands you. You feel like you're attracted to certain people, but you don't know how to put it into words, or you feel funny when you're around certain people, or certain people make you feel a certain way, or you feel like you're in love with this. Like, the feelings is the rhetoric that they use. And because you can't quantify feelings, any feeling that I can't classify might be that.
Right.
That's the option that's out there. So maybe I slot into this because my community doesn't say, "Oh, you feel like that." Like how you said, I forgot which segment it was. It's like, "Oh, you just body watching." Yeah, don't even worry about it. Yeah,
Right.
you're not. But maybe I'm gay. That because it's an option like constantly pushed in front of you, and it's almost like affirmative action. Like, you gotta have at least one gay person in everything. I don't even care if it's a commercial. They gotta be there. You know what I mean? And if they're not there, then you're anti this, or you're this phobic. And I don't know. It came back to mind. That alphabet thing. Okay, so how do we deal with criminals, or how do we deal with, let's say, a young person is creative, but if they're creative and there's no communal code, then they'll just drift off into being weird, and then they start playing with crystals, and then you can't you can't tell them nothing.
Yeah.
Like, we keep losing our youth because we don't have places for them, as opposed to saying, okay, well, just believe in yourself. Oh, I gave that young brother a word of encouragement. It's like, nah, I gave him a place where he can be what he is in a very truthful manner that won't be distorted by my lack of vision, or that won't be distorted by his environment. Like Isaac was saying, your environment is going to beat you out, or is going to be stronger than your teachings. But if your teachings is saturated in an environment, even like you were saying, like creating small cells or having small cells of communities that have a code and stay on code, that's much better than being in a large quote unquote community, or in a large neighborhood, which is more likely. And you have a bunch of people who look like you, and like, if you can play ball, everyone rallies around you. If you're good looking, everyone says you should be a model while trying to sleep with you, so you wind up being a stripper.
Mm.
I got a question, Master Middlet,
Sure.
if I may.
Just one?
That's it. That's it. So when you say there's a setting a place for somebody, I would say that Anu is a place. What is the problem when these people come to these places though, and then run off trying to tear down that place? Like, what's the problem?
You have a code for how to deal with them, but I don't know how to deal with them. I don't know what the code is for that. But
I can answer that. I can
Yeah.
answer. No, what it is that it's you quoted Neely Fuller earlier. They hate you. And sometimes when you're doing this work, you forget that you're helping people who hate you. Sometimes you forget that. You see, they put their hate aside just for a little bit to hear you out, you know. But when they feel like they've heard all that you have to say, they go back to the agenda. I hate you, you know, and that's the chip that you're trying to deprogram inside of them once they get in. How many, we can use this, Zach, and it's a very simple one. You know it. How many women have come into, and I don't really call, females have come into Anu and have said, I don't trust men. I got managed. And these are females who have children.
Mm-hmm.
You don't trust men. You clearly don't even like men, but you're not a virgin and you have children. And some of them, they have had sons, right? So they come in with that spirit, and you try to get them to put it to a side a little bit. So every time you speak and they hear the manliness, they hate you. But your food, your nutrition is so good, you're like a necessary evil. You hear it in the tone sometimes, even when I say things, it's like, yes, Chief, you're right, Chief. I know, Chief. You see, it's like, I hate your ass. You right, but I hate you. So once they feel like they've collected enough gems, like I'm good now, because I got more information than I've ever had in my life. Now you're gonna see who I really am. They don't realize that we always knew who you were. But the thing is, you didn't know who we were. We're the good guys. you know, we go into the burning building and rescue everybody. You know, even the jackasses, even the person who started the fire. You know, so that's the thing. It's not something that happens afterwards. It's something that was there before and was always there. He got kicked off earlier, but I just spoke about this last night. You're not gonna believe this. One of the sisters asked me about Yada Ram, and she was like, "Yeah, I noticed he was in the chat and this, that." And I said, Yada Ram has the best heart of anyone, and I knew. He's got the most. Definitely ain't use that. All you can do is argue with everybody.
So you trying to tell me, Chief?
You try to, right? I'm tracking. I'm walking with you. No, he ain't. You know. But Yada Ram has got the best heart of anyone in Anu. Now, and you know, he's cool. He can hear this. There are people who outperform him in Anu in terms of doing what they're supposed to do. And that's one thing too, and I'm not putting one over the other, but his heart, he's got a beautiful heart. I would say he's got a better heart than I do, and I'm the head of everything. He's got a more beautiful heart than I have, right? He don't hate us. He don't hate his people. He doesn't. He doesn't have that in him. He doesn't have that vileness. You know, even when he speaks about relationships he's been in, you don't hear that venom. You see, so that's what it is, man. A lot of people never want to purge of the venom, which is really all those spirits they have in them. So they're sitting right there while you're sitting there talking to them, and then when they done listening, they let the spirits take back over. You know, it's almost like the Venom. It's like Venom, the freaking DC character. Like he pulls back the mask to have a conversation with the human, like, yeah, and then Venom comes, eat him, you know, and then Venom comes back out, you know. So that's what I think you have to be in tune with all the time, so you can see them when they come, and you won't be blindsided. Our people hate us. And the more you become, what you're supposed to be, the more you become a man, they hate you more. The more these sisters are on live and like, they're gentle and they're soft and they're laughing and they're humming. There are women who are watching like, they brainwashed. They just doing whatever Chief say. That's what they're saying because they hate them too. The more you become, because Yahweh Shai said, the world will hate you because of me. So the more you move closer to the Christ consciousness and you release the darkness of your humanity, the more the world, it's like the movie Inception. The world starts to turn on you. You see?
I know what you're talking about because like today I was I was in one of them state departments,
Mhm.
and there's a bunch of them there, like
Oh yeah.
always. And you smile, you be nice to them, and you can just feel that energy.
It don't even matter.
Don't even matter. You smile, you like, yes, I just need this. And can I help you? They ignore you and everything. And it's like, I'm not doing anything, I just wanted a pen, just one pen, and then, you be patient with them. And it's like, yeah, they ain't, but you already expecting, you already know. Yeah, they don't like you. They don't like you. You ain't got to do nothing to them, So, with everything that everybody has said, because it's been wonderful, having that, fear and purging yourself of that fear and, seeing other groups, because why, y'all was talking about, the color community, I was also thinking about, because I'm history, Nazis and things like that. It's like, some people just think that it, all of that started, from 1914 and World War I. was like, no, you study more and more. It was so before that, once that, they felt like, that they were the inheritors of, an empire and they wanted it back, and then you realize the animosity they had with Germany and France. And I'm like, I never paid attention to that. They don't never teach you that, what I'm talking about, and how that sort of propagandized nationalism was sold in before those people came into power. It's never, and it's like how, that liberalism comes to fruition and it be so out of whack that it gets usurped. And it's like, it's amazing. It's very interesting if you pay attention to it. You know what I'm talking about? And I would say, that fear comes, especially when y'all talk about rejection. It's like we've all been there. And for me, it was like, yeah, that's true. Because I remember, my daddy used to like, the worst she could say is no. And you get prepared for the no. But then when you really pay attention to it, it's like, it's not the no that's the problem. It's the environment and the attitude that comes with the no. It's just a simple no.
It's the ill.
It's the ill.
Ew, what?
It's the ill. Like, what? They say no, and then they giggling with their girlfriends, and just say some of the worst things, and then you be like, I could have took the no, but I gotta take the vitriol and
Right.
and I didn't even do anything, It's like I just asked for a dance, But it's all of that, what I'm talking about. And yeah, you see people like y'all was talking about Neely Fuller. It's like you see people that say they read that book, and you see them debate with the most, ignorant people. It's like if you read that book, I'm not going to even engage with you.
Right.
Why would I get off my throne?
Right.
Certain people have already given you the code, and you ain't paid attention to it. So
Well, it wasn't written for you. We got to know what's for us and what ain't for us. Neely Fuller wrote a compendium. He wrote a code. He write it for everybody. It ain't gonna work for everybody. There's certain things that we can do in this space as brothers and as sisters that work for us well, that what other people wouldn't even understand. It could be a look. You know, man, hey, you ever listen to a cat? This is what I do. And I know y'all might think I'm childish for this, but I don't care. If you hold your S's too long, you know what I'm saying? Is this too much? You know? so I might throw a couple S words. Let's say biscuits. You know what I'm saying? I'm checking. I'm checking for you, man. You see what I'm saying? So, but see how y'all all understood what I was saying without me having to say it? You see? That so there's a code of recognizing like Kendrick Lamar, like they not like us. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So when we start to foundate ourselves on those things, there's a sort of relaxing that comes about. We already know how to interact, but we disregard a lot of that stuff. Sometimes we've now been trained not to pay attention to what we're looking at or what we're hearing. Don't go by that. you know, and there's a lot of illusion in that sense, man. So I think in what you're saying, man, it's knowing who, like when that compendium, who was being spoken to, and are you respecting that? I don't expect everybody to comply with that. That's cool. It's all right. It wasn't for you. You know, it's just like you say, man, I go to these state offices. That's the state. What you expect? You just went to the big house. You know, so of course she's gonna say, go round back. You know, but I just that's for that ain't for you. Don't touch that doorknob. You know, of course. You know, whoever's working in those spaces are representing the state. Now, if you understand the Book of Revelations, when they were talking about the 666, the mark of the beast, and the mark of man, they're talking about Nero. That was a Roman emperor. The beast is actually the state. People got that so convinced. They think the mark of the beast and all that is now. No, John was talking about that, man. We had the state was the beast back then. Rome was the beast. You know, so once you kind of get an understanding of that, then you kind of understand like who's who, you know. Yeah.
Peace, fellas.
Shalom.
This is Shalom. I know I'm jumping in at the last part.
So good.
Y'all were speaking about fear, and I just wanted to share a little bit more of my experience in terms of like relating to the having the fear of like speaking. Like there are times where now it's like I still like freeze up like in crowds when there's like a group like now. And I think back like when I was in 3rd grade and I had a male teacher and I couldn't pronounce the word sun right. And he just kept like, he used me as an example, like was humiliating me in front of everybody, just kept saying, you're not saying it right. So he was like, no, say sun, the word sun.
And you probably were saying shun, right?
I don't know what I was saying, son. He was like, no, he just had me saying it.
I bet you were saying shun, because I've made fun of you for the same thing. So it's probably, yeah. She be swapping us with a, yeah.
I don't know what I was doing because he didn't explain it. I just was like, son. And he's like, nope, just keep going over and over and over. And the whole class is like dead silent. And I was so embarrassed. And I think that I carried that, I guess still do, carry that experience like when I'm in public places or in crowds, and when it's my turn to speak, I kind of like, you know, I get nervous still. But yeah, I just want to share that, and like how my voice is naturally low, but like I think I'm speaking in my high voice right now, but my voice is like lower. But I speak high because a lot of people would tell me like, oh, you sound too quiet. Speak up. And I'm like, okay, but my voice is naturally low. So yeah, so.
No, that's a good reference because you talk about that childhood trauma.
Yes.
And how that can like now create this inhibition because now it's fear. And remember, fear constricts, you know. But again, it goes to the politics. What is a grown man doing teaching 3rd graders? You see, men shouldn't be teaching children that young. That's not when the men should come in after puberty. You know, a female teacher probably would have never done that.
Yeah, he had us all with our shirts tucked in. Like I think he came from like a school that was like, violent, and so he had his classroom. We all had to wear.
See if you had any weapons on you.
Yeah, it was it was crazy.
In third grade.
Yeah,
Right.
I had my mother write a note like she does not have to tuck in her shirt. I didn't. Yeah. But he still kept forgetting, like, what note? I'm like, my mother wrote a note for me. I don't have to do this. For some reason, as a young child, like that bothered me for some reason. I don't know why. I just didn't like tucking my shirt in like that. So I just felt like we were walking around all looking like, I don't know. It was weird. But
Politics, right? So you see where the trauma begins. You ain't had no business being in no public school, especially not in third grade. What are you, third grade? 7 years, 8 years old, 7, 8, 9, right? That's too young to be learning that amount of, because in third grade you're in one classroom. That's too young to be in a room all day with a grown man. You see, that's not the age. The male teacher should be at the high school level, or even the middle school level. But it's the politics of, like, how do we get down as a people? And our culture at 7 years old, 6 years old, you're still breastfeeding. Right? Now, if you saw that today, you probably say, that's crazy, man. That's a big old child over there sucking on the woman's. Yeah, but that's our culture. We don't, here you breastfeed for 2 months. Done. That's not our culture. Nah. I'm saying, man, you got to start it from the beginning. You can't like go back now. Mama, lift your shirt up. I need to for my oats. It's for my oats. We ran out of coconut milk. No, I'm saying you got to be there from the beginning. You know what I'm saying? But that's our culture. I mean, hell, here's one. Y'all ever seen a mother give a baby a massage?
No.
Because our minds here, we're so messed up, man. We you're supposed to massage your babies. All of my youth, we used to do. They got Reiki sessions once a strong, massages and Reiki, and then they would. I mean, from young. That's what you're supposed to do. You got to pull them joints out, man. You got to stretch those muscles. Then you got to clear their energy. But that sounds crazy. That sounds crazy. You're supposed to let your children run outside naked as much as you possibly can. So now that affects where you're going to live. Who's peeping over the fence? How they going to build strong feet? How they going to soak up that sun energy? They got to run outside naked. They don't mind. It's all good. You see? So there's a way that we do things that may seem strange to a people who worshipped us at one point. And it's like Menelik was saying, they might be around people who look like, I don't care if you look like me or not. I don't really think you're supposed to, because the further we go away from the source, the more diversified we're going to be. That's the journey. And I think that's the amazing part of the journey, that you can't pinpoint Anu people. You can't pinpoint Israel, because you scattered throughout the nation. So you look like any and everything. I think really, if you was to really look at what Israel should look like Drake. We don't know what the heck he is. Like, if he could tell you he's anything. I mean, for real. He'd be like, yeah, I'm Arab. I'm Iranian. I'm Iraqian. Or what? Okay, yeah, you look like that. Nah, I'm playing. I'm Puerto Rican. Yeah, okay, I can see that. I see Puerto Rican in you. Dominican. Okay, yeah, I'm part Mexican. Yeah, probably. Because there's a blending now. That's the thing. Because what took us out in the beginning? Tribalism. You see, tribes going at tribes. It's like what Aki El-Kara spoke about. Yeah, Germany going at tribalism. Been our issue, man. That's why we got all these gangs. We got some houses in New York. He over here throwing up his set. See what I'm saying? The insanity. We got some houses. in New York, right? I'm just gonna say that out the Pink Houses. Pink House is infamous. I used to hang out there a lot. You can look it up online. Infamous houses in Brooklyn, very dangerous, right? But you know, when you're young and dumb, you want to go where they say don't go, so you can show that you live too. You know, the Pink Houses. There's a building, right, where it has two entrances. You can walk in the front way and you walk in the back way. Do you know that there's a crew that is in the front? When I grew up, there was a crew in the front of the building and there was a crew in the back of the building that did not mess with each other. They'd be shooting at each other. It's the same building. It's not like the building's like a block long or mile. It's the same building. It's just there's a front entrance and there's a bunch of cats who hang out in the back of the building, but cats hang out in the front that do not get along with each other. And it's the front crew, back crew. That's how much tribalism has got us in this cultural crazy.
So you need a gun to go to the microwave.
Basically, right. Take out the garbage.
You want something? You want something?
Right. I can't take out the garbage. Now the garbage dumpster's in the back. I can't go back there. I'll F with them, Ma. You know that. I'll F with the other side. You know, it's the same building.
Anyway.
Right. A building only got 2 elevators. I've been in and out of that building. It's got 2 elevators. So you gonna run into each other at some point. You know, but that's the sickness of the tribalism. But to get back to where we're supposed to be, we're gonna need some tribalism again. Because we gotta be able to join up with our, like Elijah Muhammad said, get what your own and do for self. You see? So that now means, oh, we gotta create tribes again. All right, well, let's try to do it better than we did last time. You see?
So would it be safe to say that along with tribalism, now individualism is one of the major issues as well? Like, I want to do everything for myself, and like I'm my own tribe and everyone else is a different tribe. So I don't really F with them too deep, because when things get rough, I won't be able to depend on them because they're their own tribe. I'm my own tribe. I can only trust them so far.
Well, I would say again, that's a result of colonialism, neo-colonialistic, mindset, and just not having a knowledge of self. We do not come from an individualistic culture. That has never been our way. We have very few African heroes. We act like we do because we come from a Western mindset. We act like we have that. Just like when we speak about, when we translate certain terms on the continent, we call our leaders chiefs. We didn't call them chiefs. We call them kings or queens. But if we say the word chief, and this is what happened when those invaders came in, they took away a lot of they established chieftaincies. You cannot be the king of this land anymore because there's a king back in England who has claimed it, but you can be a chief. You see? So there are things that we've taken on, and I know you're like, would you call yourself Chief Yuya? They called me Chief Yuya. I didn't start calling myself that. I would have been fine with King. I didn't start. I would have called myself something cooler, So, so the thing about it is that within that, it's like even the ideas of individualism, that's not ours. That's not the way. So even when we look back on our quote unquote heroes, we look back on them through a Eurocentric view where there has to be the individual. So we don't even research the story. If we were to look back on Anu, it'd be like, yeah, that brother Chief Yuya. What about Zach? What about Menelek? What about Na? What about Raheem? What about El Karar? Right? So it wasn't just me. But because we might look at it through a Eurocentric world perspective, who was the guy?
Mm-hmm. Not Malcolm X. Not Nation of Islam. Just Malcolm X.
Malcolm X.
Yeah, leave Elijah out of it.
You don't know nobody else, but there was a collective effort. That's the Afro-Shemitic way. The collective effort. I've spoke about this before. Yes, when you go to school, you're taught from a Eurocentric perspective. So everything you're taught, who invented? Get the hell out of here with that bull crap. Who invented? Listen, let me tell you something, man. Hell, Gap Band outstanding. Right? We made outstanding. All of our cookouts, we made outstanding. We made Before I Let Go our anthem. We did that. Not even, look at this, Maze featuring Frankie Beverly. See, even the separation there?
Mm-hmm.
Not the band Maze. Yeah, they made the song, but we made it a legacy. From all those cookouts, from all those graduations, it was a collective effort. You see what I'm saying? So now if you understand that worldview, this now starts to make a whole lot more sense how you get things done. We always got things done through movements, not through heroes. Heroes is somebody said, well, Sir Isaac Newton did this, and Kepler did this, and Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison. You freaking liar. Mm-hmm. And the messed up part about it is that when you start studying, it'd be a bunch of dark faces who was on those people's teams. You see, but we have to maintain, because people are trying to become gods, like in their old literature. You see, in our old literature of deities, we talked about pantheons. You can't have no Shango without no Oya. You see, you can't have no Olokun without no Yemonja. You can't have no Osir without no Oset. We understand, and then we understand these cats was related. Oh, this one was this one's mother. This one was this one's son. This one was, So this is a crew that's coming forth, and that crew is coming forth and creating what we call diversity. That's why they were represented by the covenant that the Most High gave us, which was the rainbow. We never lost the rainbow. Don't get twisted on that. That's still ours. That's a sign of our covenant. You see. They don't even have the power to take that rainbow. That's ours. In fact, you brothers need to start wearing, I ain't gonna do it, but y'all should start wearing like headbands with rainbows and stuff like that. You know what I mean? You take the rainbow back. Take the rainbow. I just don't look good at, it just doesn't mean my complexion. But y'all look good in That's what I'm saying, man. You know what I'm saying? It's the worldview that you're looking at things through, man. Individualism, I don't. It's not in our vocabulary. It's not what we do. Period. It ain't what we do. And whenever we try to do, it's on nothing be working.
No.
We can't hold on to anything that we got, like we say, oh man, but what about like you said, like Oprah and this and that. Oprah got Stedman and a whole bunch of other people on her team telling her, you think she's coming up with these ideas? Or when you hear an amazing song, people be really thinking the singer wrote the song and did the music. People really think Whitney Houston was sitting down writing music.
Mm-hmm. Or a lot of these comedians are sitting down coming up with their own jokes.
Exactly. It's a team. Mm-hmm. So people have learned that science of teamwork and have built amazing situations for themselves. And some of us fell for the egocentric idea, which is what? Luciferian. I will. You see, if you understand that the Most High is a collective hive mind, then the Most High would only speak in let us. We should do this. Mm-hmm. And then when Lucifer, he's like, nah, I'm going to ascend over your throne. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So then we start talking about Lucifer. You see what I'm saying?
And barely mentioned the ones who was with him. Like, what about us?
Right, exactly.
I got cast out of heaven. For this?
Yeah, like we just saw the one dragon fall, and the rest was like, "Yo, this is some BS." It's like that Boondocks episode when Grandpa was like, "I was on the bus with Rosa Parks."
Right.
Well, you attacked. You know, see what happened was.
Right.
You know, Robert, I thought we soon we all wear our raincoat.
Right.
You get your raincoat right now.
So that's what's happening to us, man, and we have to start to, and that's the dangerous thing. When you start to restore the Afro-Shemitic worldview, then you become a problem. Like I said, I'm not taking anything away from Kendrick Lamar, like, because that's more. He did more on that stage than I've done. You know, being able to bring all those people together like that and to use his fame and his notoriety, but don't get fooled into thinking that he did something. What's the code? Bro, like when we get off the stage, I remember the Million Man March. Beautiful experience. We was all there. What's the code? Yeah, we had some good speeches, and those speeches kind of gave you some things to think about it. And music changed for a couple years back in '95 after the Million Man March. I remember that. Cats were becoming more political. Then they ran out of money, and they got back on that gangster stuff. You know. So yeah, man, the code has to be established by us all. Like us brothers who are sitting here can't sit down and establish a code and not ask sisters, hey, does this, like, what if we did it like this, man? You know, how would that affect you? Can you keep up with that? You know. Then we got to think about the babies. Can the babies keep up with it? Even the babies who ain't here yet. You know. But we're gonna close out, man. This has been wonderful and beautiful, and I want to thank all you boppers, you know, for coming through. You know what I'm saying? For coming through on the set, man. This has been a beautiful build, and I don't even know what it was on, but it was on a bunch of stuff, and that's what the builds are about. You know, and I want to definitely thank Brother Michael for coming through and definitely holding his own against Zach. You know what I'm saying?
Riddler.
I knew he's gonna say that. He held his own, man. Come on, man.
Oh yeah.
He ain't catch no attitude. He ain't hop off. You know how some cats would do. You know, no, brother, you twisted my words all around, brother. Just say it like that. You know, he ain't do none of that. You know what I'm saying? Come on, man, give it up. But yeah, you know, I want to thank you all for coming through, man. This was definitely beautiful because this is modeling. We showing people some stuff, and y'all may not realize it's not always about what you preaching to people. It's not always about that. You think all the time you got to pour into people. You know, remember, we always get what we see faster than what we hear. You know, sound is much slower than light. So, you know, just witnessing this, man, and just seeing this is powerful for some cats. You know, there's some little children right now. Somebody's watching this, and there's some little child walking past the screen and don't know what the heck this is. But they're gonna run into it maybe years later. Like, oh, this is what my grandmother used to watch. This is what my pop. What the heck was they doing? You know, they was into this. You know, just like some of us found our old records of our grandparents and like, what's this? Put this on. Al Green, who the heck is that? You know, so it's the same way, man. So this is powerful, and I want to thank everyone for coming through, man. As always, I will be right in the return and the forward when the sun comes up at noon Eastern on the same channel, giving more instruction, giving more teaching, and, you know, taking us on a deeper dive into what we need to mentally resurrect, you know, and to stand in the proper space and to do it as a community and as a loving collective. Also, remember, our retreat is coming up July 7th through July 8th.
July 4th.
July 4th. Yeah, it's not a one-day retreat. Yeah, you know, I just seeing if y'all, cause see, y'all be slipping a lot of times, so I gotta, you know.
I was getting a little sleepy, brother. Get that.
Yeah, brother. That's what a Jegna does. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, July 4th through July 8th.
Ken.
Yep, July 8th. I'll be there. I know it don't sound like I'm gonna be there, but I'm gonna be there. You know. So you know, you can always come through for that. I know people have been sending me. Let me just put this out there real quick. No complaints, but you have been inboxing me, asking me questions about the retreats. Please go to anulifeglobal.org/retreats, and you can ask your questions there, because some of the questions you're asking, I'm not over that. Like, you know, like I have been asked like what train stations are near there and stuff like that. Go to organizer at anulifeglobal.org if you want to send an email, or you could always go to Anu Womb, you know, or Anu Life GM, excuse me, ANULFIEGM on IG, and you could just jump into the inbox and ask a question there. I know not everybody uses email, I get it, but you'll get your question answered a lot faster that way. So it's better to do it that way. All right. So I will see you all in a few hours, you know, about another 10 hours or so. I will be on the return, man. So, you know, enjoy your evening, everyone.
Peace.
So,
Peace.
Your people, original people. They go west, they go east, they go north, they go south. Places we go, we bring divine wine right from the source. Water to wine, we the nation birth from Anu. Warrior crew, it birth from Anu. Big body girls, it birth from Anu. Boom boom drum, it beat from Anu. It's your people, original people. They go west, they go east, they go north, they go south. Where are my people? Right here. My beautiful people? Right here. Ancient of days? Right here. Faces engraved? Right here. Birth from the spirit? Right here. Just here for a minute? Right here. Ruled from a cloud? Right here. Sing it out loud. Broken, scattered, but we still not forgotten. Yes, we scatter, no matter. Right from the source, we scatter, no matter. Within your people, original people. They go west, they go east, they go north, they go south. Right here. If you don't know where you're from, right here. Talk to your elder, right here. And if you don't know where to go, right here. Talk to your elder, right here. We build the kingdom, right here. A million families strong, right here. Living the culture, right here. Of giants from the stars. know it. You gotta rise and you know it. You gotta rise and you know it.